the new trilogy stuff and everything that's supposed to be leading to the sequel trilogy and everything that is supposed to be focused on. But if you notice, was a lot of standing around and talking and feelings and a lot of Boba in his underwear and a lot of exposition up against maybe a Filoni and Favreau's more aggressive or typical or more Star Warsy style when we get to the Mando sections. And it's such a monstrous shift in tone to the point where this was literally two different shows. One show was about some guy we didn't recognize that looked like a Star Wars character we used to know. And another part of the show was what Steve said. It was Mando 2.5, to the point where the most popular episodes, now remember, as Steve said, we're not talking about opinions. We're talking about ratings. We're talking about stats. The most popular episodes, the most watched episodes, didn't even have Boba Fett in it. When's the last time you saw a show where its most popular episodes didn't even feature its main or its title character? Now, they might have done that with The Flash. I haven't watched The Flash in a while because Barry stopped being a part of his own show as well. He would come on at the very beginning, set up, mess up, disappear, and come back in the last 5 minutes. But they didn't even do that with this one. So if you want to understand both the behind-the-scenes tension, because if you haven't watched any of the videos, if you haven't been following the story, there's this whole thing about old school George Lucas style, which is normally headed by Favreau and Filoni, and new school sequel trilogy style, which is normally headed by Kathleen Kennedy and those underneath her. And this is happening. They're going head to head. And this show, according to rumor, is the expression of that. So that's why it's so schizophrenic. So having said all that, I have to say that I did not recognize Boba Fett. This was not Boba Fett. I didn't understand who I was looking at. I didn't understand anything about. The last time we see him is in Jedi in the Sarlacc pit. And the one thing we did recognize was the fact that he got out. And if he survived and got out, and we put that on the best car that we could buy after watching The Mandalorian. Everything that happened after that was like blah, 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 yah, yah, yah. It's just over. Oh, look, it's Mando and Grogu. The finale was pretty good, but we'll get there. So, I mean, you know, I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed. But again, it's reflective and representative of the clear divide in so many fandoms nowadays between, I don't even know what to call, you know, long-term fans, or, you know, they call us names or whatever, rabid fanboys or whatever, but I don't pay any attention to that because it's not true.
We're OGs.
Okay, I'll take that. We're the ones that made them rich. We're the ones that supported properties for 40 and 50 years before they got popular. We're the ones that pass on that love to our children, just like our parents passed it on to us. We're the ones that buy all the merch. We're the ones that do that. But then there's the new school, the new group, the new wave that is more interested in identity politics and more interested in things that don't really have anything to do with the IP. And so this show spelled that out like never before, and I hope never again. So I want to hear you guys' general overall thoughts, and then we're going to dive into specifics. Start with Bracy.
First of all, I'm calling us the get this right here, the OJs. That's original Jedi.
Ooh, OJ, yeah, you better make sure you specify what that means.
No, I'm not talking about some famous dude who murdered his wife and her boyfriend. No. Yeah, this, I really was looking forward to this a great deal. Serious Boba Fett fan. You know, especially when you learn that when you know that the Mandalorian TV series was originally the bones of the script for a Boba Fett movie before Solo tanked. So we can sort of see where it might have been, you know, what might have been. And that made me very excited when Boba Fett was actually going to get his shot. And having seen what Filoni and Favreau did with Luke, having seen the reemergence of Boba Fett in season 2 of The Mandalorian, I was so pumped. I've seen all the EU stuff, be it novels or comics, games where like Boba Fett has returned, and I know he's a very mysterious, not very fleshed out character in the movies, but in the EU, he's very well fleshed out. You get a lot of character out of that, and despite them throwing away all the previous potential canon, we've seen more and more of this come back in as we find out that the Mouse House is kind of bankrupt for their own ideas, and they've gone to better works of fiction and better auteurs to bring to life things that the fans actually want to see. So with that said, this was tragically disappointing because the Boba Fett that we get in The Mandalorian is not the same Boba Fett here at all. There are moments, I would say overall, I might have liked about 30% of the show that just deals with Boba Fett. The Mandalorian episodes, I don't even consider Book of Boba Fett episodes. That's, as everybody online has been saying, Mando season 3.5 or 2.5, as you will, 2.5. We all know that. We all recognize that. And that'll get into that divide that we're talking about. And this was something I really, really, really wanted to like very much. And despite the fact that Favreau's on it and Robert Rodriguez is on it, it feels... I've even gotten some arguments with some people online. It's like, oh, you know, they've lost the plot. They're bored. They're doing all this. I don't think so. You watch the Mando episodes of the series and you see what's going on. So I felt like, yeah, there's stuff in the background that's happening because these guys are too good to do this bad.
Even Tamura Morrison himself,
yes,
said he didn't agree with the direction of the character, and that
he didn't want to talk. He wanted to keep the mask on a heck of a lot more. He wanted to be Boba Fett.
That reminds us of Mark Hamill's reaction to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Now, when you have actors that have been a part of this franchise from the jump saying openly and publicly that I don't agree and I don't even believe that's my character, you need to pay attention to that. That's like saying that, you know, somebody wants to see, you know, 3PO twerking, and Anthony Daniels like, 3PO don't twerk. But anyway, go ahead, Nimitz, overall thoughts, and then we'll get to specific stuff. I'll throw it to Steve.
Yeah, I think the divide that you're talking about is really true. And I'll be honest with you, I picked up this series, the first watch, at episode 5 because I wasn't going to watch it at all. And somebody said, you know, hey, episode 5 was pretty good. Well, it was. It was Mandalorian. So I tuned in and I watched it, and then because we were going to do the series, I got through episodes 1 through 4, you know, and that's all I'll say about that. But I think what you can really see the divide, where you can really see where one group there wants to go in one direction, and one group wants to stay true to the original, but you know, maybe updated or go a little bit different, is in 2 characters. I was originally going to go with the bike gang, and I hope we talk about them, but I've thought better of that because I was like, you know what, I could see them fitting in on another planet. I think it's a mistake, but I could see them fitting in on Coruscant or something like that.
Yeah. I
think the characters that really, you know, show the difference is the Major Domo, who is really a new character, you know, the prototypical new character. He is not a Twi'lek. I don't care. He's some dude that has tails. That's what he is. Mm-hmm. And he's a certain type of dude, and I'll leave it at that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then the other character that is true to the old school, updated, but true to the old school, is Cobb Vanth, the Marshal. The Marshal could fit right into the originals. He could even fit into the prequels if he really wanted to. He could fit into Rebels. He could fit into Clone Wars. He fits. So those are 2 characters, and I think those 2 characters were written by the 2 different groups, and you could tell that because Cobb Vanth comes from Mandalorian originally, and this new character, the Major Domo, is all the forces. You know what I'm gonna say. So
right. Go ahead, Steve. What do you think? General thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know to what extent there was behind the scenes conflict. I mean, it's very probable there was some. I just don't know enough to say to what extent it influenced what. But the problem is that there are a lot of promising ideas that come together in a way that is a mismatch, and it is a mess, and it's not paced right. And I talked about on Wheel of Time a lot about time management and how bad time management can cause problems. Mm-hmm. There's some of that here too. But the real problem is you have, I would say, like 4 main things. You have the Boba Fett stuff in the past where we see, him getting into the Sarlacc, how he gets out of the Sarlacc, how he deals with the Tuscan Raiders, and how he becomes the Boba Fett that we see in The Mandalorian. Reasonable story. You have the Boba Fett story in the present, which I think is where the weakest parts are, which is where you're talking about the Major Domo character, who was so annoying, and there are so many different ways you could have dealt with him that would have been satisfying, and it never happens. But and then the business with the swoop gang, which honestly, I don't have a problem with a biker gang in theory. I have a problem with a biker gang in the way that it's presented, and also because they misused Danny Trejo. If they had had Danny Trejo as a Ron Perlman style biker gang leader, I think you would have gotten some awesome stuff there. But as it is, you've got these characters that nobody cares about. Their bikes look ridiculous compared to the setting and all that. We'll get into all that. You have the Mando 2.5 stuff, which easily is the best part of the whole season, which is the last 2 and I would say half of an episode. And then you have the Cad Bane and Boba Fett story, which while I like it, I like that conflict. This is another case where the time management kills it, because we should have seen Cad Bane in episode 1. Because up to that point, there is no villain of any consequence. In addition, that honestly, Boba Fett is just not a character that, for the longest time, I really resonated with in any way. It's like he's one of those George Lucas characters who looks cool. He has a great visual design, an interesting backstory to some extent. But as a character, he just has never been quite there for me. And I was really, really hoping that they would do to that version of Boba what we saw in Mandalorian season 2.0, what we've seen with Darth Maul, what we saw with Cobb Vanth, that we would be able to get what we've seen with Luke, which is, taking Filoni and Favreau's obvious skill and understanding of the Star Wars universe to make a character that really truly felt like they belonged there and that it was deep and interesting. But I feel like they messed it up, and I think a lot of it is because present day Boba Fett and past Boba Fett are 2 completely different characters. And I think this is probably where you can make the best argument for there being behind the scenes interference, whether it was from Kathleen Kennedy or whoever it is behind the scenes at Lucas that's doing that. Because it's just it's to me it's bizarre how you can have past Boba Fett who acts completely like the Boba Fett that we know, and have an episode set in the present where it's like, why is he acting the way that he's acting when we haven't seen that, in season 2 of Mando, for example. It's a complete mixed bag. There are things I love in this show, and there are things that are just completely do not work at all. And then there are things that just feel like they needed more time to develop, and other things that shouldn't have been there. And because of that, it feels like a complete mixed bag of a show. And it's unfortunate because I was really looking forward to this. I'm like Jeff, I really wanted to see this. But unfortunately, it's like I end up mainly looking forward to season 3 of Mando because that was the best part of the whole thing.
Well, let's go character by character, which will make a little bit more sense than episode by episode, because the arcs are bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can make a statement like Steve made, where no villain of consequence, and you have Twin Hut, and they don't really make that much of a difference. You have messed up. So let's start with Boba himself. What I can't understand, like many people can't understand, is why there was a need from wherever it came to completely rewrite an established character and to rewrite in the wrong direction. So if you have a character that's shrouded in mystery, if you have a character that has only said 3 or 4 or 5 lines, if you had a character that was known for their subterfuge, their stealth, their ability to track so many different things as demonstrated on screen, you already have a rich set of skills and traits and foundations and backgrounds on which to build, even without any other EU material. You could just take what we saw in the main films, the original trilogy of Boba Fett, and go from there. But instead, he was changed to midlife crisis Boba Fett. He was changed to They rescued me, so now I'm going to be the oxymoronish combination of a benevolent crime boss. I'm going to be a kind dictator. I'm going to be a whole bunch of things that don't make sense in juxtaposition in a character that was ruthless, in a character that was more about the money. And let me tell you another problem. Now I'll put on my writer's hat for this one. First off, I must admit, this is hard for any writer. This is hard for anybody. It's hard for the four of us. It's hard for anybody. So let me say that up front. But here it comes. When you have created a version of something that's better than the original idea, you have to really tap into any humility you might have. And number one, admit that. And number two, figure out what to do with the original idea when you've come up with something that blew it out of the water. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it happens with chemistry on screen with the actors. You have the established couple, but you have another, like we talked about with Wheel of Time, but there's another couple on the show that just feels better. Sometimes you have an actor that was supposed to be a bit player, a bit part, a one and done, and they become so popular until sometimes, like in the case of Steve Urkel, they take over the show.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with Boba Fett after watching The Mandalorian, they created a better everything about the Mandalorian, about the religion, about the lore, about the armor, about the motivations, about their place in the galaxy. So we saw all of that in Mando show. So now if you're going to do this, you have to come from a different angle or an old school angle or something true to the character, and then somehow show the difference between, what happened to the clones as opposed to the Mandalorian religious order or the order that has to earn their armor or just so many different things, because we've already seen that now. That's not easy to do. It's possible, but it's not easy. And here instead, after watching a show that literally focused on the helmet and the armor, we see Boba in his drawers most of the time, starting out episodes where he's on the floor in his drawers, and we're like, why? And he had 3 episodes where he started out in the back to tank, and we see his nightmare. We're like, okay, we get it, but and it was some type of weak explanation to try and justify who he is now, which is a bunch of characteristics and traits that don't make any sense in the same character, no less that character. And on top of everything I've already said, he had to have his bacon saved by Fenix Character every time he got in trouble. So I'm like, where is Boba Fett and who is this guy? And and even the bit with the Tuscan Raiders, which I thought was touching, but once again, this is what happens when you don't understand your source material. Okay, it's the new school writing. That's what I was talking about. The 2 factions of making villains sympathetic, of making that which was antagonistic, making it sympathetic or understood or justifying their their existence or whatever it is you want to say. But no one wants to see that, and nobody really believes that. That's the thing. So I'm going to throw it out to my co-host, but we're going to talk some more about Boba as we go around between us, because there's so much more to say. And the last thing I'll say before I throw it out is, the thing that hurt my writer's heart the most was that there was no narrative drive. When we meet Mando, we very quickly find out what he's about, but what he wants. And then he meets Grogu, and his life completely changes. And then from that point to this point, we know what Mando wants. What did Boba Fett want? Was he just trying to survive? Was he trying to avenge the Raiders? Was he, because he threw money back at people's faces? I'm like, how you going to be a crime lord and don't take the money? He was disrespected almost on every side, to the point where I'm like, can you grow a spine? Just a little spine. Little spine won't hurt you. And he's disrespected. And I'm like, we didn't know what he wanted. There's no narrative drive. There's nothing that takes us through the season that says Boba Fett is fighting for this. Okay? And when you do that, you have no story. You have no character. Let me throw it out. Nemesis, Boba Fett himself.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points. So I'm going to go back to the source material because I think the real problem here is that people don't understand the source material. And, Steve's point is correct, is that Lucas created this character and he never wrote an arc for him. But I think that Boba's personality and who he is developed through a number of movies so you can understand who he is and what he's about. So the first time that we see Boba Fett, not on screen, but historically, he's a clone. He's a clone of a bounty hunter whose father gets killed, who's adopted by bounty hunters and raised into a bounty hunting lifestyle. So the next time we see him, historically in the movies, he's aboard the Star Destroyer and Darth Vader is sending out bounty hunters after Luke, and he has to look at Boba Fett and tell him no disintegrations. So it's like right there we have a hint about who this guy is. The next time we see him, in something consequential, he's on Cloud City, same movie, and he's looking right at Vader and talking back to Vader.
Yes.
Telling him he's useless to me if he's dead. That's who this guy is. And then he's calmly walking with the body to Slave One. Then he shows up in Return of the Jedi. What else do we learn from these appearances? He's comfortable working with the Empire. He's comfortable talking back to a Dark Lord of the Sith. And he works for gangsters. That is who he is. That is his type of personality. That tells you a lot about who this guy is, how he was raised, what he's comfortable with, what circles he moves in. So then you contrast that with what we get in this series. And like you were talking about, DT, and I'm sure everybody else is going to mention, it's a complete 180. Even if he's rescued by the Tuscan Raiders, he is not going to have a sudden change of heart. He is going to be loyal to them out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of he needs to pay back his debt. But he has no regard for anybody else. Honestly, when he goes in there, and they show that at the end of Mando, they go in there, they kill
Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, Bib Fortuna. They kick his body off, and he sits in the chair, and he gives 0 Fs about what just happened. That is Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
This whole series should have been The Godfather, of him cleaning the house, and then if another rival gang starts to come in, it's like, okay, you want to mess with me? I'll call in my favors, and we're gonna go to the mattresses, just like Godfather. It's like somebody's gonna sleep with the Tuscan Raiders. They're gonna go out there and sleep with the fishes. So it's like that's what you're gonna do. And then and they had to bring Mando in, and do that. But let's be honest, Boba Fett's not a Mandalorian. He wears Mandalorian armor, but he's not a Mandalorian. So talk about just not understanding your character, not understanding what came from before. And that's why it doesn't feel like the same character, because like Steve said, it's not the same character. It's just not.
Well, we had the perfect setup, like you just said, for any type of mafia or gangster background in Star Wars, in space, in sci-fi, however you want to say it. We had the perfect setup for that. And again, I'm going to mention that we're dealing with the Hutt, and we're dealing with Hutt territory. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Boba Fett not being a Mandalorian, but wearing that armor. And once again, since we've seen so much background, and then they said in Mando's show that, there aren't really any born Mandalorians, and it's a creed. And there's so many different places we could have gone. But again, the crime boss aspect alone is how we got introduced to the character with that little tag at the end of Mando. And we thought, oh, this should be interesting.
Yeah.
Just watching that kind of thing. But everybody knows, man, that you fear the Hutts. Everybody knows you don't mess with the Hutts. Everybody knows that if you squat on Hutt territory, you better be bringing something worthy of said squatting and taking over the territory. And that didn't happen.
And you saying that, I'll just add this in real quick. I don't want to go, I want to let everybody else have the chance, but you just said it, the Hutts. Well, he killed Bib Fortuna and took over the opportunity. Well, right there, you say Bib Fortuna, that guy's not a strong leader. So he's obviously kicking something up to the Hutts to keep his position. So now the Hutts come to Boba Fett and are like, where's ours? And now you got to see, what does Boba do? Does Boba deny them? I mean, there's a great season right there of him fighting back against the Hutts.
He
I mean,
also said when he was getting his crime bosses together that he didn't want their money. He just wanted them to swear they wouldn't turn on him.
Mhm.
And I'm like, have you met many crime lords?
And they all turned on him, every last one.
I was like, really, dude, really? And
Yeah.
that leads us also into his actual leadership skill or style. And, you know, he was no kind of crime boss. He was no kind of boss. He was no kind of leader. And in some cases, he was no kind of man, just taking disrespect. You can't lead anybody if they don't respect you. From a classroom full of kindergarten children to a military unit to a socio-political unit to anything, you name any group of people. If there's no respect in the mix, the leadership thing is not going to happen. And I was like, out of all the places in the galaxy where you would think you know that, go ahead, Nemesis.
No, I was just going to add, you're absolutely right, especially in that environment. In a gang environment, in a criminal environment, the minute you lose respect, you get eaten up by the sharks. So
I'm stunned. Go ahead, Steve. Boba Fett himself.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction with that. I mean, it's like, okay, I can get to a certain extent, you know, maybe a little bit of where they were coming from. And maybe like in the planning stages, they had a kernel of a good idea. Okay, we have, you know, Mando to do the bounty hunting story. So, okay, we need Boba Fett to do something else. And then they had him have that awesome scene, you know, killing Bib Fortuna. And I'm like, yep, that's what Boba Fett would do. You know, take the throne of Jabba the Hutt and try to run it. But and I'm not even against the idea of I want to rule with respect. Okay, but then you have to demand respect when people are disrespecting you. and I mean, you have this assassin who tried to kill you, and you know what are you going to do? Oh yeah, we'll just go and take him back. We're going to go and take him back to the mayor, and we're going to have a nice negotiation over tea and crumpets. And it's like, no. You would be making an example of this guy. And you would be sending the guy's head to the mayor in a box. Why are you not doing this? This is what any crime lord worth his salt would be doing. You know, those guys over there, you know, say, oh, yeah, we're going to leave you alone. I mean, Boba's first instinct would be, no, you're going to betray me, and I'm going to plan for that. And then I'm going to make sure that I have part of my plan means having all of you killed because I know you're going to betray me because we need to send a message to your successors. Assuming you have successors, you know, that we're not going to, what happens when you mess with me? I mean, and this is just basic stuff. I mean, if you want him to be a kinder, gentler crime boss, there are ways to do that don't make him a complete clown. Okay. And it's like, okay, be a pragmatic businessman. Don't have unnecessary killings. You can even say, all right, we're not going to deal in spice. I'm absolutely okay with no spice and no slaving and, you know, doing that kind of stuff. But then on the stuff that they do that is criminal, you know, Boba should be like hitting them ruthlessly. You know, we're going to make this business work. You're going to fear me, and I'm going to make you fear me because, you know, I'm wearing Beskar armor. I've been trained in Mandalorian styles of fighting, you know, and I will kill you. And I have all these other people. I have a Wookiee that will kill you. And it should, but we don't see that Boba Fett in the present day scenes. We definitely get hints of him being, you know, the proper Boba in the past when he goes after the biker gang, those couple of times. I bought that. Like, I have absolutely no problem with him doing that. That makes sense. You know, he's paying an obligation. You know, and in the case of them, you know, the tribe being slaughtered, it was like, no, I'm going to have revenge because these people took care of me, you know, at a time when they didn't have to, and I feel I owe them. And my way of paying back my debt to them is by slaughtering these people. That's Boba Fett. No problem with that at all. But then he gets, for some reason, he inexplicably becomes this guy that is a pushover. Boba Fett is not a pushover. And I will also add, not wearing your armor when you're a crime boss and everybody's out to get you is not very smart. Not
I'm just going to leave my dome exposed all the time.
I would never, ever take off my armor for anything if I didn't have to, you know, with these people possibly trying to kill me. I don't even know if I trust Fennec. What do we know about Fennec, really? Nothing. How do we know that Fennec is in any way loyal to Boba, or if she's just doing this to, you know, get power and this is a convenient position for her? I don't know. Do I want her killing me in my sleep and then possibly becoming the boss after that? Does he put any thought into that possibility? Nope. It's I will respect, and then be a pushover for virtually everybody out there. And it's only until the last episode we see any hint, of Boba being the badass that he should be at all. And even then, he's still playing the rule with respect card. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It's just so many ideas, so many good things that with the right execution and the right character development could have been good. You could even justify, an arc, of him maybe redeeming himself if you put any thought into how that would make sense for him, but they just don't bother, and it's just ridiculous. And I will also add, I think I like Boba Fett as a character best when he's playing off against Mando, because then, you see them being bounty hunters, you see Boba being in the game where she was designed for, and his whole approach of, I don't buy into the creed, I'm a bounty hunter, I'm going to do what's right for me. That's Boba Fett. And it plays off very well against Mando, who is very much, I believe in the creed, I believe in honor and duty and the Mandalorian values. And I honestly think that if they had just had like Boba Fett and Mando as a team going forward, I mean, that actually would have been better than trying to do a show like this.
I will say this, and I am curious what your response would be, Steve, is that I honestly think part of why they made Boba Fett kinder, gentler, is because they are scared to have Mando associated with a bad guy, not realizing that, Mando is amoral. He's a bounty hunter.
Mando's a bounty hunter, and, it's like, I'll bring you in warm or I'll bring you in cold. He has no problems with killing people that are targets. He
might have
a problem with killing little green children. That's it.
You might have something there because they turned Megs into a good guy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a Disney thing. They don't want they don't want kids rooting for, a guy that's amoral. But the thing is you can have him be amoral to a certain extent, without completely losing who he is. You could have him be kinder and gentler without losing his edge completely. They just didn't balance that well.
I mean,
Disney, Jack Sparrow is still a pirate.
Yeah. And let's be fair. The original Star Wars turned an amoral character, Han Solo, who is a scoundrel, into a good guy, but it took a while.
Yeah.
Han started shooting a guy in the face.
Yeah.
And he was a smuggler.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like Malcolm Reynolds. They're smugglers.
Work for Jabba.
That's
Jabba.
Right. And they're out for themselves. So before I throw it to Bracy, a couple more things I want to throw out. Number one, it seems like the Tuscan Raiders are the go-to group whenever you want anything, and then they end up getting slaughtered, and then that is the event that turns the tide. If there was a group where I did not need to know more about, I wanted them to remain mysterious, it's the Tuscan Raiders, and I'll tell you why. Because Tatooine is a hard planet. All of the places are hard places. It's a scavenger planet. It's a desert planet. It's a place where all the people trying to eat you or steal something from you. That's all the Jawas do. And so that's the right kind of background and tone and feel. And I did not need to see a nurturing side to the Tuscan Raiders. I'm sure they had one because they have families, but I didn't need to see it. That doesn't help. And then also, because the more you show of mysterious characters, the more it dilutes them. So you better be sure that you're willing to risk the dilution, because we could have that same conversation about the Borg. When we first
or about Boba himself. I mean, he was a mysterious character, and then we've been seeing all the mystery be stripped away from him, and now he's not that interesting.
That's right. And so I definitely did need to see that. But here's the other thing: from a writer's point of view, you could lift it out, and it wouldn't matter. And whenever you can lift something out, and it doesn't matter, if we never saw what happened to Boba, if we saw him get out of the Sarlacc pit, and then we went to modern day, and we didn't have the Tuscan Raider background, it wouldn't matter. That's the thing. It wouldn't matter. Just when he could mention it before he went to blow up the bite people, he said, you know what? I got a debt to pay. He could have told the story and would have had maybe even more impact, because we would have had to imagine it instead of what we saw. And then finally, if you're going to introduce and take a deeper dive into a culture, then you need to explain to the audience what we're looking at, so their symbols and their rituals can have some type of meaning and emotional resonance. We got the general stuff that would happen with any living things, but there's so many things that they did that they didn't take a deep enough dive to help us understand the significance of the items or the rituals or of the choices. Because for a while, I didn't understand why the Tuscan Raiders didn't just strip him like the Jawas would have and be done with it. And then they did the foolishness of having him climb out of the Sarlacc pit with his armor on, surviving because of his armor, then getting his armor stripped, and then going back later and saying, I got to find my armor. Like, dude, wait. Did you watch your own show? I mean, anyway, go ahead, Bracy. Thoughts on Boba Fett as a character?
Okay. Going to try not to rehash what you guys are doing because I think we're all on the same page here. But the defining thing is what we see initially in season 2 of The Mandalorian. This is the most recent incarnation of Boba Fett we've seen, and it's very much in line with everything that we've seen in Clone Wars and Star Wars and everything that precedes. This feels like continuity of that character. You know, he's a badass. Morrison's whole character in his scenes in Mando is incredibly different. You get this grittiness from him when he first approaches Mando. This authority, this menace. He feels like a dangerous man, even when he's staying there unarmored. And then later on, he proves it. And he comes and he takes over. He's got to break into Jabba's palace. He's got to kill a bunch of people. And then he just mercilessly executes Bib Fortuna, takes his spot. It doesn't matter what he thinks of Bib Fortuna, because he's talking about like ruling with respect over fear. But what we've just seen doesn't jive with any of that. So right off the get-go, there is a disconnect. There's a dissonance that we have to deal with. There's a way this could have been handled, because there are some ideas and there are some moments of character and progression that we can see sprinkled in there that could have been valid, but they were botched or handled clumsily for whatever reason. All right, let's go with Boba gets stripped by the Jawas when he escapes the Sarlacc. Okay with that. Gets captured by the Tuscans. Okay with that. They are known for that sort of thing. Now, Disney has decided that the Tuscan Raiders are Native American stand-ins. But what they've forgotten is the original idea for the Tuscans was kind of like Apache. They would grab you. They would torture you. They would kill you if they didn't just enslave you. And so initially here, they capture Boba as sort of a slave. Now, he is a prisoner, so he has every right to attempt to escape. But the first thing that's completely out of characteristic with that is he asked the Randorian, the Rodian, hey, come on, I'll set you free. Like, no, Boba would have just left that dude behind. It's like, see you later, sucker. And then the little Greedo shouts and warns, like, you're not leaving without me, and gets the whole tribe on Boba. And then we get that conflict there. Boba should have earned his bones with the tribe by slaying the creature. And let's say it's like a minor version of the Krayt Dragon in its own. There are certain creatures that if you kill on Tatooine will get you respect in the eyes of the natives. And this looks like a pretty fearsome beast. And Boba handles it barehanded. So that's going to elevate him. Like, oh, he's dangerous. He's important. He's earned a spot. This is very much Dune. When you think about it, Paul and Jessica amongst the Freemen, once Jessica proves what she can do, she's immediately indoctrinated into the tribe. You will share our water with us. You know, we will share our water with you. Like this, you're part of this, because Tatooine and Dune have a lot in common, oddly enough, including spice. Shared universe, just made it happen. So we've got this going on. So once he earns that position in the tribe, well, he's got no resources but the tribe at this point. So we can watch slowly over time as Boba's interactions, his perpetual sense of duty, or at least honor, because that's one of the reasons he changed the paint on his head. It meant like honor your father's legacy. So it changed. I believe the previous meaning, like the stripes, had meant like I forget, possibly vengeance, but it changed it to like honor according to like expanded universe stuff. Because obviously Filoni is very steeped in the lore, and I know he's feeding a lot of this to Favreau. So having the idea that like he's going to be an honorable man, even if he is not a good man, That's okay. Anti-heroes are cool. So over time, as he gets in this lifestyle of the tribe, he kind of goes native, and that's cool too. It was kind of neat watching him progress that way. Again, it wasn't handled as well as it could be, and it could have just been initially all from this perspective, like, I just need to use these people to survive. Oh, they're being attacked by this biker gang, or they're being attacked by the train through the desert. That could have all worked out. It's like, okay, you guys are a threat to where I'm at right now. I'll do something about that. And by that time, he's kind of like okay with the tribe enough that he comes back even after dealing with the situation. And maybe even does have a change of heart. Maybe we could have had these moments of self-reflection. And to a point we did, where he's like, this lifestyle didn't get me anything, really. It almost got me killed. How many times? And I ended up in the stomach of this doggone sand beast. And he becomes part of the tribe, but then that gets taken away from him. And so Boba thinks about all this when he eventually tracks down his armor and gets his ship back and finds Fenix. He starts to build his own tribe. And that's the perspective you could have had there. He's building his own tribe. So he goes in and he takes over, was it Mos Eisley or Mos Espa? Mos Eisley? Espa? Yeah, so he takes over at Mos Espa, Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a daimyo, but he's going to be a slightly different daimyo. He is still going to rule with an iron fist, but you'll have a shot with him. Now, people coming in disrespecting him right away makes no sense, because he just killed Bib Fortuna. And you're going to come and lip him right away?
Right.
No, I mean, he's been gone, we don't know how many years, at least possibly up to 5 years, and we don't know how many of those were spent in the Sarlacc, because apparently it can digest you for 1,000 years. Presumably the threat was you're alive the whole time somehow. So it's got some sort of suspended animation digestion thing going on. But so if he's been gone the whole 5 years since Return of the Jedi, and people are thinking the wrong thing about, well, breaking into Jabba's palace, which is a fortress, and then dealing with Bib Fortuna should set all that straight. So none of that should have happened, but he starts building his resources, building his army, and he can still rule with honor and still be that guy if he's taking a different thing, because the Tuscans that we see even in the prequels, they went deeper. George went dark with it. They tortured a helpless woman to death because they're kind of like old school Apaches. Don't get on our land, man. It's a bad move. We're going to do something to you that's not going to be good one way or the other. And so he's still living amongst those people, might have softened him in some ways of thinking like outside of himself. I'm better with a group. I'm better with these people. I see the advantages of structure, leadership, and even family, tribe. But this doesn't make me soft at all, because these people are savages. They will kill you if you cross into their territory. But no, Disney had to go like, we try a different way. The Tuscans, we are the kinder, gentler Tuscans, because everything's kinder and gentler when they want to focus on you like that. So no, none of that works. But let's go back with this. So Boba, I like the idea of Boba marching into town instead of taking a palanquin or anything like that. He's a man of action. He's a man on his feet. He should never take off his helmet except in the sanctum of his fortress around only his most trusted lieutenant, and that's Fenix Shan, because now she owes him a life debt. He has saved her. And even then, like Nemesis said, you can't necessarily trust that. And that would actually be kind of a cool plot point towards the end. If she's like, I got a better offer, and they had like a cool shootout. That would have been pretty sweet too. I also agree that we should have had Cad Bane early on. So these things could all be done. And I've seen some discussions on how like they kind of work some interesting things in, like the way Boba approaches the Rancor, and I can see where some of these people were coming from, and I can even see some of the thought process behind it, but I don't think it works for this character, not the way they wanted it to. And really, Boba Fett, it should have been the Godfather in space. It should have been Deadwood in space. When it came down to a final battle, it should have been Boba Fett having these clashes, and brilliantly enough, Timothy Olyphant, who's in both shows, having these clashes with Cobb Vanth and them having to come to an agreement to deal with what's that race again? The guys, the Spicers.
I can see him.
The Pikes.
The Pikes. Thank you. The Pikes. I was like,
yeah,
I knew it was named after a weapon. The Pikes. I was like, okay, we've got a greater threat, and maybe that's because the Hutts found out that they couldn't deal with Boba on their own, because Boba Fett gets up in Darth Vader's face. He don't give no F's. Like, I don't care. A couple of Hutts, and the Hutts should have been a major villain in this. Watching the Hutts back down, like that was a real head scratcher right there. So yeah, Boba Fett should have been that guy. He should have had no F's about it. And he just recognizes resources and needs, and he reaches out to Cobb Vanth because it's in our best interest together to deal with this thing. And then on top of that, when we get to our end, he calls in his bounty hunter markers. There's no village full of like nobodies who've got no fighting experience coming in to deal with a bunch of professional killers. No, Bosk, Zuckuss, Dindar, all these bounty hunters that we never got to see anything cool doing the original series, they all come in. Bubba calls in all his markers, all these cool bounty hunters, plus some of the new ones that are really cool, like Black Krashak, or however you say his Wookiee name. Chrysanthemum. Thank you. Like all these guys, and can you imagine how epic that would have been? We didn't even need him to call in Mando. I mean, heck, he's not even on the planet, but he could still call him in for that. I'm sure, like, hey, put out a feeler to Mando. I've got the credits. Comes on in, and what an epic showdown that would have been. That would have been the Magnificent Seven in friggin' Star Wars, baby. And that was the show I wanted to see. I wanted to see the most awesome space cowboy, because Boba Fett is already, like, because we never got to see him before the prequels, he is the man with no name, but he's not the good guy of it. You know, he's the Lee Van Cleef, not the Clint Eastwood. When you look at the good, the bad, the ugly, he's that guy. But you can start evolving him towards a sort of likable scoundrel, to an anti-hero, to a not quite a good guy, but like a guy who will do the honorable thing, if not the good thing. You know, this show had so much potential and so many ways they could have developed the character. And I would see just a few little moments, like, you know, when Boba goes out and he whoops the crap out of that bike gang, you know, like, and he does it with like the most primitive weapons, because, you know, the Tuscans don't have great technology. And those were the moments I felt like I was watching Boba Fett. But when he's on a bike and he's hopping up and down, he's like, go off and make little banthas. It's like, and he's talk. And even Temuera Morrison is like, I'm talking too much. Why am I talking so much? I need the helmet on a lot more. When the actor agrees, we know something has gone totally, totally wrong. He understands the character better than you guys, and he hasn't even played the character before, just as his DNA daddy. So come on, Disney. Come on, man.
So when we examine that, what I want to jump to the Rancor. The Rancor was, you know, probably another member bearers kind of thing. But I thought it was good. It was just a little bit inconsistent in terms of what the Rancor could actually do. Because if you pay attention to it, the Rancor was taking shots from every kind of weapon that he had and laughing them off. And then all of a sudden, here comes Cad Bane with his little fire shooter, and Rancor's like, oh, no, I can't deal with fire. I was like, really? And then if you're going to introduce Danny Trejo, man, you got to give him a little bit more to do than what we saw. And I understand, I mean, he's the perfect, you know, Rancor trainer. That was a perfect casting and everything. But it was almost like a wink and a cameo than it was actually a developed relationship. And we didn't learn any more about the Rancors that we didn't already know. And that's a huge missed opportunity. We don't have to get their whole backstory. But if we just got a few little nuggets that we hadn't seen before, that would have been cool. And then if you're using, you know, if that's your trump card, that you're ace in the hole, and then it turns into a control your beast situation, it's just like they complained about the Avengers Because the Avengers always say, we saved the day. Yeah, but you destroyed the city. But that was really them. That wasn't fair. That was the villain, but they got blamed for it. In this situation, I'm like, you're going to let a Rancor loose. You better have some type of backup plan. What would you have done if Grogu wasn't there? Because that Rancor would have torn up the very city you were trying to save. And in terms of like what we wanted to see, Tatooine is one of the worlds that Malcolm Reynolds would visit in Serenity.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I wanted to see more stuff like that because it was a chance to see things from the other side. We have both the bounty hunter and then we have more background about the world itself. And so that had a whole lot of potential too. And we didn't see that. But anyway, so let me hear your thoughts about the Rancor because I really liked it and I really enjoyed it. But it was one of those things where you enjoy it in the moment because it's happening so cool. But if you think about it too long, you're like, wait. This was not a viable plan because that Rancor would have ended up destroying the city. They would have had to, Data has an off switch. They gave a river something that Simon would say to shut her down. You have something when you bring in those character monsters that are supposed to shut them down in case they get out of control because you can't rein them in. Okay. And there was none of that with the Rancor. I'm like, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to Grogu because I'm like, once again, his level of force training is nebulous. But I don't want to get over that into a minute. Let's talk about the Rancor. What do you think about the Rancor, Steve?
Yeah, I feel like the idea was cool. It's definitely clear that they were trying to build up to something cool. To have it, be part of the big final battle with the Pikes and those monster scorpion droids or whatever they were called.
Yes,
scorpion droid.
Yeah, scorpion droids. Yeah, and for a while it's fine. Like when he's riding him, it's fine. But it's very clear that Boba's the only one that this thing will listen to. And when you take Boba out of the equation, what do you got? I don't know. But I'm going to add one other thing that I just realized is a problem. They did not have the Rancor trainer with them in the final battle. Why is he not there? If he's working for Boba and you're bringing, you're going over there and say, hey, I'm bringing down the Rancor. You want to come with? I'm pretty sure you're good with a blaster, Danny Trejo. No, they didn't bring him out. And it's like, and you could say, okay, maybe they couldn't afford him or, whatever, but at least kind of acknowledge that he's there. And if Boba gets taken out, where's your trainer? The trainer would be the guy to stop him. He's the perfect guy to stop him. He's not there. So when you end up getting this whole scene where Mando tries to stop the Rancor, and Mandor gets thrown around like a ragdoll, and it takes Grogu to end up stopping him finally. Which fine, but again, and Boba should be better prepared than this. Boba is not stupid. He is a bounty hunter. He is prepared. He makes sure to have the right weapons for the right job. He makes sure that he's not fooled by Han Solo when he's hiding under the Star Destroyer. He's going off. He's following the Cloud City. Clearly that very little thing establishes that Boba Fett is not stupid. Okay, but there are moments where you kind of realizing, he's kind of being stupid because he does not have a backup plan for his Rancor. Even though he has a perfect backup plan in the Rancor trainer, who does not come along because reasons. We don't know why. Doesn't make any sense.
We got the classic Rancor move, which is biting the torso off and swallowing it whole. But based on what Steve just said, I want everybody to realize that the Rancor itself wouldn't have known the difference between friend or foe. So that's another reason having the trainer there was just a key missed opportunity because the Rancor wouldn't know and the Rancor wouldn't care. Okay, because we've established what it is and it just eats whatever's in its path. And you try to shoot me, then I'm going to eat you. I'm going to eat you with 2 bites, one for your torso, one for the rest. Okay, classic Rancor move. We got that. But Boba again didn't have a backup plan, and the trainer not being there was a glaring omission. And when you are letting something loose on a town that you're sworn to protect, which also throws in the wrinkle of out of nowhere, this is my town and these are my people. Really? Since when? Since when? Because first you're like, you know, we're going to rule, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But you spoke about them like you had this long history and this long, you know, bonding, and we've been through, which would have been more Vance story, would have bought that more from him and from you, and you set something loose that was going to take them out if you didn't get it under control. And it's another one of those fights where it's the reason that the Dark Knight gets on my nerves. Everything has to happen exactly like it happens, or else the plot doesn't work. So in other words, there are no alternatives. So I'm like, Mando had to be there, Grogu had to be there. You know, the Rancor had to do exactly what it did. It couldn't do it any other way, and that kind of thing. And I no, didn't like that. So Bracy, what do you think? Thoughts about the Rancor as our
you know,
monsters?
Yeah, that's Steve is right. This is an idea that we knew was going to be cool, and that's what they're counting on. Because new Star Wars, when they finally stopped talking, is all about being cool. So it's empty calories, no substance. And well, admit, like seeing the Rancor take on those two droids was really cool. Like we rarely get to see a Rancor just cut loose. I mean, like just against the Gamorrean guard and Luke without a lightsaber is not really seeing the monster cut loose. It was just a big menacing thing at that moment. And it was a great way to have some tension for that scene. But it was fun to see it cut loose and see how mobile they were and how strong they were and how tough their hide is. They can take blaster fire that would disable like armored craft. So like, man, tough critter. So then we get to the problems. Like you said, Rancors don't know friend from foe. They're going to be guided by whoever is riding or training them. We see the Gamorrean guard fall into Jabba's pit. It gets eaten up as quickly as anything else that ever falls in there. Same thing for the poor little Twilight girl. So you have to have somebody leading the charge with this thing, guiding it to its next victim, to its next target. Here's what I propose, because I'm sure Nemesis is going to get into a different aspect. I'm going to go back into the what ifs, how to make this better. The Hutts have come in. They threaten Boba. You have a few clashes. They're not getting anywhere. They bring in the Rancor. We're going to move back in the palace, and we're going to restore everything as it was, even better, because now there's two Hutts. And we've got a Rancor and a Rancor trainer. So in our final fight is the Hutts, Rancor, along with the Pike, and maybe even a couple of droids. That might be overkill at this point. But you bring in the Rancor, because the bounty hunters are doing too good. And here comes the Rancor being ridden by Danny effing Trejo. And so now they have to have a big battle. And the only one who can really get up there to do anything is Boba Fett, because he's got the jetpack. Flies up, knocks Danny off. Danny pulls out a machete, because kind of like, let's do that bit of fan service. And they have a knockdown, drag-out fight, and he takes charge. And then, like, what he has to do is, because Boba Fett does rightly say, and I love the connectivity of this, even though it was like really lame. When he first encounters the Rancor, he's like, I've ridden beast 10 times its size. He's talking about the Star Wars Christmas special when he's riding this big sauropod looking dinosaur thing. Yeah, that thing was massive. So now Boba, because this is space cowboys in classic cowboy fashion, he flies up, grabs the reins of the Rancor, breaks that sucker to his will, and turns it around and has it eat the friggin' Hutts. And that's the end of the conflict right there. That establishes nobody F's with Boba Fett. He's got a Rancor. He's got claim to all of Jabba's stuff. No question anymore. Don't step out of line. And when he talks to Cad Bane, Bane asks him, like, you know, why are you doing this, Boba? It's like, because I've claimed this as my territory. And that's all you need to know.
Wow.
That's how it should have played out.
Wow. Just the image of the Hutts being taken out like that would have made an impact. That would have established, and that would have, no, that's a very good game changer type of thing. Go ahead, Nims. What do you think about the Rancor?
Yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of it. I am going to go in a different direction here. I will say real quick, the idea of bringing a Rancor into a city, with even the possibility of it getting loose, is insane. You know, but the reason it's insane, and here's where I'm going to get into once again, these people don't understand the backstory or the lore or what they are saying without even knowing that they're saying it. So we've already talked about this new and improved, kinder, gentler Boba Fett we have, and he lives in this universe. He knows all this stuff. Well, here's the thing. In the novelization of Return of the Jedi, they mention that Jabba had to train the Rancor to be the way it was by denying it food and everything. And that the witches of Dathomir domesticated these animals, and they're naturally in the wild benign. They're not evil killing machines or anything like that. So for you to have a Rancor that acts like this, you have to have abused it. It's dog fighting. They use Rancors for dog fighting. So you are telling us that we have a kinder, gentler Boba Fett who is all concerned for humanity and everything, and then he brings on a Rancor, and he's had him for a while, and he's using this Rancor in the style that is an abused attack animal, So what are you what exactly are you telling us? Because you don't understand.
You see Michael Vick of Bounty Hunters.
Yeah.
I mean, Danny Trejo very much makes that point that these are peaceful creatures on their own. He's like, they can even be quite loving. They're like giant space dogs. But what does Boba do? He brings it into a fight where it might get shot to pieces because, we're losing. We got to do something.
Yeah. And if this was Boba Fett from before, I totally buy that.
Mm-hmm.
I totally buy it because Boba Fett's like, I don't care. This is
You
one more thing.
about collateral damage. That's right.
Yeah. This is one more
and
thing.
And you could argue that the Hutt's abusive, but Boba's still going along with it.
Yeah. So it's just one more thing. It's one more tool I could use. I don't care if this creature's being abused. I'm a gang leader. I abuse human beings. Why am I going to care if I abuse a Rancor? But this is not the story you're telling. So it's like, can you get your messages straight here? Because, and this is what I'm saying. It's like you're stepping all over yourself without even knowing you're stepping all over yourself because you don't know the world that you're writing. So
because you don't know the world that you're writing, that we could subtitle every episode the Book of Boba Fett, episode 7, because you don't know the world that you're writing. Okay, let's jump to Fenix Shand. Now, I know everybody likes Fennec, or most people like Fennec, and I like Fennec, and I like Ming-Na Wen, and I like her presence in the show, and I think she makes a difference. But therein lies the heart of the problem, that she's more interesting, she's more ruthless, she's more calculating, and
I believe you called it the Book of Fenix Shand at one point.
Right. That's right. We definitely had that hashtag going on Twitter because how can I say this? She's written without flaws, and she's written to pretty much where she doesn't lose. And she's not a Mary Sue, but that's the path to Mary Sue when you don't have an obvious thing. And she's bionic. We saw her get rescued, and she owes Boba that life debt. But there's no honor among thieves, so there's no law that says, because that's where we found out with Jane. Jane betrayed Malcolm and the Tams more than once for the money because he didn't like them anyway. And so, like, whoever brought up the idea that, do you really want to sleep with Fenix Shand around? Are you sure of her loyalty? Because she kind of makes a decision on a whim. Because if you notice, Boba Fett said, where will you go next? He's willing to let her go. He'd realized they'd kind of come to the end of their alliance. And she said, no, I'll stick around. Why? Why are you sticking around? You sticking around for money? You sticking around for thief loyalty? You're sticking around because why? Why are you sticking around? You're sticking around because you want to do like a Sith duo and you want to murder him in his sleep, take over his territory, which, as you guys said before, would have been extremely interesting. What if the finale was Fennec turning on Boba and she was like, I was playing you this whole time?
I mean, let's just look at Solo, where that exact scenario happened. With I forget her name, but the gal played Daenerys Targaryen. She turns on her crime lord when she gets in the proper position, and it's a good little twist.
It would not be out of character for Fennec. That's the thing. It would be totally in line with her character, because after a while, she would have to realize what the audience realizes, that this man is not competent at what he's trying to do. Yeah. Which is what made me wonder. I mean, she saved his bacon over and over and over again, but after a while, I had to say, why are you staying with him? Are you saying that you got tired of that life and you wanted to settle down? Are you saying you're just biding your time for you to take over? Like, what is your motivation here? And I felt like that could have been answered a little bit better. And once they showed us that she was bionic, we never really revisited. I'm like, well, no. You can't have a robotic stomach. You can't have your torso, your stomach, your midsection torn out, because I don't buy that anyway. Out of all the things I buy, appendage replacements, I buy arms and legs. Maybe I can buy eyes and ears. I don't buy your gut was out and you survived and somebody gave you a robot gut. No, they didn't. But anyway, so we'll take that. But but she's showing up and she's doing all the things. Just like when we get to Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum did all the things we wish we could have seen Chewie do. Because all the stuff we heard about Chewie was stuff we heard. We saw Chrysanthemum tear somebody's arms off. We saw a whole bunch of things that Wookiees were known for when we meet them in the first Star Wars movie, but we never saw Chewie do them. Okay? And that's also my biggest problem with Han's death in Force Awakens, because Chewie would have never just stood there ever in a million years, but Chewie would have just stand there and let it happen. He's a better hunter, warrior, fighter. He's got better instincts. He would have just, no. So, but anyway, so I'm saying, so with Fennec, I'm like, yeah, you're great. You're awesome. You got all this stuff. I particularly liked her Assassin's Creed / Batman style killing in the last episode, taking out the mayor. I really like that. But I'm saying to myself, was that the plan all along? Because y'all could have did that a long time ago. So, was that just something you just thought of in the moment? And, but again, I love Ming-Na Wen as an actress. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything where I didn't like what she was doing in terms of acting. So I really enjoy her acting. I really enjoy what she brings. I love Agent May. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really kind of grew on me because I didn't like
Calvary, baby.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm saying, and to put on my writer's hat, once again, if you have a supporting character that's more important than your main character, then your writing balance is off. Okay? Because she was definitely more important, but she was more competent. That's what hurt me to watch. I'm like, and once they kept proving how competent she was, she wouldn't have stayed with him. So we needed an on-screen reason to see why you stayed to the bitter end, because it wasn't a romantic connection. And, if it was a life debt like Chewie had with Han, then you have to explicitly state that. And then you also have to understand that that's overriding her bounty hunter tendencies. That's overriding her assassin tendencies. She tapped into something that she thought was greater than how she'd been living, because a life for a life. We can buy that. We can definitely buy that, but it needs to be a little bit more explicitly stated. Instead, she's showing him up at every turn, and that reeks of everything we've seen in the last 5 years. And I don't even understand why people sleep in Bacta tanks. I can understand why you soak in one to help you heal, but you're actually, every morning you wake up, you're in the Bacta tank. You realize that's the most vulnerable position possible. That's why Darth Vader had his hidden behind all these doors and you can't get to it. And certain people could approach and all that. I'm like, you realize that's not, when you're an assassin or a bounty hunter, people are after.
He's still got the Force in the back of the tank. He'll choke you before you get to him.
Then there's that. That's right. So, but looking at Boba, I was like, so was Fennec, is she the bodyguard of all that? I just, I enjoyed her scenes. I enjoyed the actress, but I didn't always get her through line or her purpose, other than I'm a better assassin than Boba. That's what it felt like to me. Thoughts about that, Nims?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on exactly what I wanted to say. I'm just going to expound on it a little bit. Fenix Shan, it's implied, even maybe stated that she was rescued from being left in the desert by Boba when he found her, but, and here's the big but. They never really explained the level of loyalty she has to this man. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. You would have some loyalty there. You would feel like you have a marker that you need to pay off, a debt, but you are not going to go to the bat for this guy over and over again and risk your life. This woman is a contract killer. She's a ruthless contract killer who had a price on her head. She is not a nice person. Again, she's not a nice person. I cannot stress that enough. She's a bad guy, period. End of story. You know, also, I think your point about her being the best criminal, the best killer in the series is absolutely right. And that is, it's just unacceptable. You know, it's like if you're going to have, if you're in a crime, you're writing crime syndicates, you're writing a gang or something like that. If you've got the loyalty of a dog that's that dangerous to you, you have to have something over them as the crime lord. This goes back to Boba Fett. You have to have a way to control them in case they decide not to be loyal anymore. Because that's always a possibility. Boba Fett is always going to be looking over his shoulder. If she's really that dangerous, if you want to tell me she is more dangerous than Boba, you're never going to count on her loyalty because loyalty is a fickle thing. You're always going to have a way where it's like if she gets out of line, you know, I've had somebody put a poison capsule in her bionic arm when she was out. I've had someone screw with her stomach so that she can't, you know, do stuff anymore. I've done something. So that's why it's just like, look, it's like understand these characters that you're writing and understand the scenes that you're writing because, you know, I know you want to do nice and I know you want to be Disney, but that is not who these people are. So it's like, that's why it doesn't feel authentic. It's like you have got to understand what you're writing. If you want to write unicorns with rainbows coming out of their butt, then write that, you know, go to Coruscant and have people riding on their little Vespa scooters and doing whatever the hell they do. But if you want to write hardcore mafia Tatooine stuff, then damn it, get in the gutter, get in the slime and write it, you know, and it may not be pretty and it may not be Disney wants, but if that's what you're going to do, you got to do it. You got to get it in there and write what is required.
Well, Mando did it.
Yeah.
Mando did it well. So we know it can be done because we've seen it already. That's
and Rogue One did it too. We even had a rebel, a good guy, kill somebody because he couldn't afford to have that guy spill the beans when it looked like they were going to get captured.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And keying in off of what Nemesis just said about Fenix and about the dynamic of the relationship, we've seen it done better with Malcolm and Jane because that's their exact relationship what Nemesis described.
And that brought up to me, it's like, you know, you want to talk about a woman getting close. I mean, Boba would never fall for this particular tactic, but it's the same scenario. Our Mrs. Reynolds from Firefly, you know, it's exactly what happened there. You know, she was ruthless and she got close so that she could get what she wanted.
I'm going to special hell.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, Bracy, what do you think about Fenix?
Okay, Nemesis actually picked up on something that I was going to say as well, so I'll work that in. Again, let's say Boba's different. He's had different experience living with the Tuscans. He's learned a few things. He's modified his outlook on life. He finds somebody in the desert who normally he wouldn't give two craps about, unless he realized she was a bounty. Like, oh, well, there's somebody I can turn in, make a coin, right? But instead, he realizes, like, this is one of the most dangerous people in the galaxy. I'm building something. I've got a use for this person. Let me save them. So when she wakes up on the table, he lets her know that she has a debt to pay to him. And more so, he tells her, because I think my whole thing tonight is going to be how to have made this better. More so, he tells her, this is the sort of life you lead as a hired gun. I've been there. You're still there. Work with me. Be my number one. And you will have a position where, you know, you've got a lot of backing, you've got a lot of resources. On top of that, you don't always have to be the one out there. And I'm going to make sure that price on your head goes away. I've got more than enough credits to satisfy that. So now you owe me twice. Thirdly, just like Nemesis said, I was like, there's also a bomb inside her guts, her bionic guts that she don't know about. And inevitably, at the end, because I'm going to have her turn at the end, when she does turn, he sets it off and it blows her legs off. And then he hauls her back to the mods to give her Darth Maul legs. So now you know exactly where you stand. I know exactly where you stand. And now you're on a choke chain. I've got you. There's no more working your dead off. You're just mine from this point on. That's what Fennec and Boba's relationship should have been. But what do we see instead? You very rightly called this the Book of Fenix Shan. Because Boba sits like a lump when he's holding court. Fennec does all the talking, like it's her court. She discusses how things are going to be amongst the gangsters, amongst the visiting dignitaries. It's always her speaking up. It's always her giving the orders. And most importantly, it's always her saving Boba Fett. The same Boba Fett that we saw trash a biker gang with no armor and a stick. The same Boba Fett that we saw mow through a bunch of stormtroopers with that same stick, and then later with his armor like an unstoppable killing machine. No, but if he's not being saved by her, he's being saved by the Hot Topic biker gang. No. Not happening. Fenix Shan is an elite assassin. Boba Fett is an elite bounty hunter. This is two very different skill sets. I like that Ming-Na has the agility and the parkour and the speed and the skill, which is one of the things I like when we get to the final fight, seeing the difference between how he and Cad Bane operate. I imagine a fight between Fennec and Boba going down similarly, and I like that about that. Boba, he's got the comfort of his Beskar armor and a shit ton of weaponry. So he's a walking tank. He's a weapons platform. He's an A-10 Warthog. And, meanwhile, she's like an F-18 trying to zip around, outmaneuver. So that's the sort of thing we have. So it gives them both a particular place within the organization that they both excel at, and they complement each other because of this. She can, in fact, be deadlier than him, but he is far more durable and I think far more cunning, or he should be, than her. And this is why he's the boss. She understands how ruthless he is. And not only that, but how being around him is beneficial. And in fact, she does owe him until something better potentially comes around. But as it is, it really is the Fenix Shan show so often. And that's so annoying that the guy whose name is on the title card, this is his show. But doggone it, everybody at every moment is just walking all over him, supplanting him. It's like Picard all over again. And you know what? If you're going to make the Fenix Shan show, give me the Fenix Shan show. I will watch that. I like this character. But, don't promise me Boba Fett and do something else completely different. Because like you, DT, I really like Ming-Na. I like her as a person. I like her as an actress. I like what she does with her characters. I loved her on Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. I loved her in Mulan, the original animated one, y'all, for those of you who don't know. She's just really fun to watch and, watch her perform. She always does a great job. Fenix Shan is a really cool character, and I like seeing her in this show, but this show wasn't about her.
Okay.
Should have been.
Right. Well, her name wasn't on the marquee, but it ended up being more about her than we should have had. And on top of what Bracey's already saying, best description there, durable. Durable, that's the right word for Boba, just being able to come through everything, because that was established with his escaping the Sarlacc pit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you also said she did all the talking in all of the meetings, she also did all of the menacing.
Yeah.
See, Boba's supposed to be the menace. He's supposed to be the one you're afraid of, but she was the one exuding the menace, listen to what we have to say, or this is not going to end well for you. That kind of thing. And I was like, I agree with Brace. If you're going to make a show,
even if she's doing all the talking, if Boba wanted to play it all mysterious, he's sitting there in his helmet, because like I said, he never takes it off when he's dealing with others. And like she's saying things, and somebody like gets all lippy all of a sudden, and Boba just makes a slight gesture. You see his finger come like off the side of his weapon and slip down towards the trigger, and then the room just dead silence. Well, maybe we were being a little too hasty or something. Just a small little move like that, let people know, like, oh, it's about to get real.
Honestly, I think these writers, a lot of them, need to go and either read a hell of a lot more or get in the weeds, man. Because, I've read a hell of a lot, but I also grew up in a rough neighborhood. And I'm telling you, I've seen these people, like gang members and stuff, they don't trust their own mother. You know, it's like
That's right. But again, larger and beyond the characters,
yeah,
Tatooine itself has already been established.
yeah,
What kind of races and what type of activity and what type of environment it is, which means certain things are required of you just to survive in an environment like that.
yeah.
And I'm like, but you come with, I shall be a crime lord that everyone loves. What? Go ahead, Steve. Fenix Shan.
Yeah, they just get so much wrong. I will say, like, Fenix Shan's not that bad of a character. We've seen that in Mando. Ming-Na Wen is excellent, as you guys have all said. I'll add a couple of things, though, that really weighed on me. One of them is like, why, can't we establish that, maybe she benefits from being a Bower behind the throne, because her role and Boba's roles are very different. Boba can take all the hits because he's wearing a suit of Beskar. I mean, he's established as a bounty hunter. He's the guy everybody knows. He's the one who's going to take all the hits because he's at the head. She's an assassin. She plays in the shadows. Okay,
she's the knife in the dark.
That does all the kills in the night. Okay, so it would make sense to say, okay, give me a certain amount of authority. Give me, this amount of a cut. And what I'll do is I'll take care of your enemies, from the shadows, and nobody knows where I am or who I am. I'm just your enforcer, the shadowy enforcer of yours. If it had been something where there was a give and take, that would have made sense. But it's just too often we see that she's the one that's driving things, and too often she's the one who's delivering him, and that really doesn't make sense. It needs to be at least equal. If not her owing more to him, because again, it's like, why would they trust each other? No reason whatsoever. I mean, what is stopping her from betraying him? No reason whatsoever. And we need to see more of that. If she decides that, okay, I'm loyal to this guy because he saved my life. Okay. Yeah, but you've saved him so many times that, after a while, the debt is going the other way and he should be paying her back. It's just, no, that doesn't work. It's just the execution of this character just doesn't quite work. In addition, that she's killing characters that Boba should be killing. Yes. Like, there is no reason that she's the one killing the pipe boss. Boba should be killing him. Yes. The mayor, Boba should be killing him.
Yes.
Why? Even if it was one of those things that was arranged, by Boba and he ordered it, okay, I can see where it would make sense to kill all the pipe leaders. But it's just, it's not as satisfying because she doesn't have any emotional investment in it. All the emotional investment is because the pipe boss killed the tribe that Boba belonged to. He's the one who wants the guy dead. I mean, and then the mayor ended up disrespecting Boba repeatedly, betrayed him repeatedly. I mean, this guy is somebody that Boba should be lifting, off the ground, and threatening to kill him. Why is he letting her do it? He should be saying, I want to kill this guy myself. You go kill these other guys. No, that's not the way it works in the episode, though. What were you going to say, man?
I was going to say, not only should Boba be killing him, like you said, he should be killing him publicly.
His corpse.
Public execution.
To
this
send
is what
a
happens when you cross me.
Yeah, to send a message to all the other would-be gang leaders or anybody else is like, yeah, what you exactly said. This is what happened.
You know what? Takes him out to the Sarlacc and dumps him in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Feed him to the Rancor, something. The other thing is, what exactly is Fenix character arc in this entire season? How has she changed or grown in any way? What have we learned about Fennec in any way? We've learned some things about Boba. I don't know anything more about Fennec than I knew from the start. I don't feel like, she's grown or she's changed or she's become a different person. She seems to be pretty consistent from start to the finish. Her character arc is a straight line. And it's like, what have we learned about her? What have we gained from watching her? Okay, well, she did some cool stuff, things that Boba should be doing, but she did some cool stuff. And I just feel like her character is kind of wasted because it's like, okay, in terms of character role, yeah, she does stuff. But in terms of being a major character and, the number 2 character in the show, what does she amount to? And this is leaving out the fact that, just like Boba, she's left out of, those 2 episodes featuring Mando. We see her like walk on to meet Mando and offer him the job, and we see her, giving the Mon Mothma speech, in front of the group to take out the Pikes. And beyond that, we don't really see her in those episodes either. But even then, before that, it's like we just don't get a whole lot. We just find out how she got her bionic gut, and that's really about all we really learn about her. We don't learn anything from her. So I feel like you have a really good character here. You have a great actress playing her. Why don't you tell us something about her and do something with her, or even her relationship with Boba? Give us something meaty. But no, it's just, she's just off being awesome, and that's all she does. And I feel like she should have been a lot more than that. And there's also a bit with Chrysanthemum I want to get into when we talk about him, because I feel like Boba dropped the ball with that too. But we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. He's coming up either next or soon. There's a few more things I want to hit now. From a writer's point of view, put on my writer's hat for y'all to understand what Steve just said. When you have a character that has no arc, that is not a character, that is a function. That's not a character. It's just like you've seen it before in a million shows. A function called Hero's Girlfriend. She's not a character. She's a function because she has no purpose other than to be the hero's girlfriend. And if they're not together, then they have to make up things for her to do. And of course, the best example is Lana Lang from Smallville, because I blame Smallville for everything. So don't even get me started. Smallville is the show that established a precedent that it's okay to have a show that's about everybody but the main character. And I'm never going through that again, where you promise everything is a character story world and everything about them. We meet Supergirl and she's flying instantly, and Clark doesn't fly until the last episode. And Clark, there's one episode in I think season 8 or 9 where Zod is on Earth and he gets one drop of Clark's blood and he's flying less than 30 seconds later. They used that entire show to show Superman up at every possible turn from the pilot to the finale. I couldn't believe it, but I knew back then it was about the precedent it was setting. That's why I kept trying to tell people. But, they're like, oh, no, you're just overreacting. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so then who took it there for the CW? Arrow. It became literally Felicity and Friends before it was over. The Flash is all about, especially when they gave Iris powers. So we don't need to get started on that because we'll be here 2 more hours talking about the Flash. So this is what I mean when I say I don't like that precedent. I don't like that frame. And I don't like, as Steve said, when that's not an arc. Okay, that's a function. That's a function. And when it's a function, that means you can plug somebody else in it and the same thing happens. That's how you know it's not an arc. So anyway, a couple more characters I want to talk about. I do want to talk about Black Chrysanthemum, but I also want to talk about Luke and also Luke and Ahsoka. Because I know a lot of people that don't understand the lore don't understand what that relationship means.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk about that when we get there in a minute. So let's start with Black Chrysanthemum. First of all, everything about Chrysanthemum to me felt like authentic Wookiee.
Yeah.
Han Solo is smuggler with a heart of gold, and we saw that. And George Lucas himself said that Chewie is basically a boy and his dog, because that's one of the oldest story tropes, a boy and his dog. And we get that. But if you think about it, Chewie is always described. The closest we got to see to real Chewie was when Lando turned on Han, and then Lando took his cuffs off and Chewie grabbed his throat. And Chewie was like, yeah, no, it's over. What's wrong with you? And 3PO's hollering, what are you doing? Trust him. And Leia's like, yeah, right, we're going to trust him. And I thought Lando was over. See, that is what a Wookiee would do. And that's one of the few times we got to see that, because when we first meet Chewie in Star Wars, and talks about you ought to let him win our 5D chess because Wookiees have been known to tear people's arms off. We never see Chewie do that. Black Chrysanthemum, however, is exactly the Wookiee we've always wanted, because he's angry. He's ruthless, and the reason he's so frustrated is because he misses his glory days as a fighter. He can't believe the life he's living now because he misses the time when he could just go in and maul a few opponents and then go somewhere and have a porg and call it a knight. Okay. And so everything about this guy, again, is a true we wanted to see. And then they do something ridiculous in that in the last fight, he gets wounded and he's limping, and all of a sudden he needs help and all that. I'm like, what? So once again, I think Nemesis nailed it when he said, understand the characters that you're writing, because you have established this guy as, you know, the biggest gun in the mix. And when we first meet him and we see how he has a choice to make as to whether or not, you know, because he tries to get talked down by Jennifer Beals' Twilight character. And he's like, yeah. So you can see the angel and the demon on the shoulder. I'll just take the arms off. I mean, good grief. See, so once you establish that, this dude, man, we want to see more of him. We want to see him do what he does, because he too is ruthless. He too is angry. He doesn't care what people think of him. He's just like, you know, I am who I am. And then you kind of water him down a little bit in the final fight. I was like, no, wrong thing to do. But the one thing that I did want to happen did happen, and that was that I'm screaming at the screen, please don't kill Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is too good of a character to get rid of. Please don't kill Chrysanthemum. If you have any sense, you make him be a part of the team. Okay? One of the strengths of The Mandalorian, I hope they follow up on it. If they don't, I understand. But one of the strengths of The Mandalorian, I don't even know if they meant for this to happen. But he worked really good when he had that team of rogues led by Bill Burr. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Those are some of the best episodes. And I'm like, if Boba had any sense, like Nemesis said before, and like Bracy said, you put together a team and a family and a cadre of people that you have some type of control over to watch your back because you got something over them, and it makes you more invincible. It makes you more feared. It makes you all those things. I'm like, Chrysanthemum is the made-to-order character for that feeling.
You just hit on the point I wanted to bring up. You just hit on it.
Okay, well, go ahead. Take it. Jump in.
All right. Well, what I was going to say was that the end of the last episode, we get Super Friends. We get Super Friends there. They got the Super Friends pose and everything. So so that's what we're getting in Book of Boba Fett too. And I'm like, you know what? If that is where you wanted to go, and you're absolutely right, I will get to Black Chrysanthemum in a second. That's fine. But that's what it should have been. The whole episode should have been. Each episode should have been, until you decided to do that ending story where they come together and he's got his group now. It should have been called Fenix Shan, Black Chrysanthemum. You know, each name with the story about them and how Boba either wins their loyalty or gets them on his side and ensures he's going to have their loyalty later in whatever he's doing. That's and right. Then we have the final conflict with his group, and then they come together, super friend pose, you know? And like you said, Black Chrysanthemum is such a great character for this. He is the evil twin to Chewbacca. You know, so you've got Han Solo and Chewbacca versus Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum. You know, it's just that mirror image of them. And Steve can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I mean, and this is not canon. They don't treat the games as canon. But there's one of the Knights of the Old Republic games where they established in Kashyyyk that the Wookiees who go more Wookiee than Wookiee end up living in the swamps. They're almost feral. You know, they're just rage machines that want to kill all the time.
I'll get into that when I talk about Chrysanthemum.
Yeah, so that's Black Chrysanthemum, and I'm eager to hear what Steve has to say. But it's already there. So you've got such a great story that you could have built on from that, stole something from the game, and that's what you do. You know, so I think your point is absolutely right. Black Chrysanthemum has to stay. He's that offset. He could be the one that's controlling Fenix Shan. Like Fenix Shan gets out of control. Hey, Black Chrysanthemum. If Fenix Shan gets out of control, rip her damn arms off. You know, so it's like, you know, so and he tells Fenix Shan, he's like, hey, Black Chrysanthemum gets out of control, you stick a knife in his ribs right there, you know, where the Wookiee dies. So we got it all under control. I think your point is absolutely right. And it seems like that's where they wanted to go, which is build Boba Fett's crime organization, because that's what's at the end. They're like, you know, I'll stand there like, we're ready to help. You know, so I mean that's what you got. So
see now the music is in my head. That dun 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 dun. But anyway,
You gotta admit that music was pretty fly for back in the day.
You can't get it out of here once you hear it. I'm
Dun,
going to go to Steve next, but let me say this, and that is that in Attack of the Clones, but specifically in Revenge of the Sith, there is not one Wookiee that stands out to us. We know Chewie, but we did not have one experience with the Wookiees in general that made any of them memorable in any way. Then here comes this guy. And so, again, that thing you just said about them being the perfect mirror, Han and Chewie, Boba, and Chrysanthemum, that is spot on. Go ahead, Steve. Thoughts about Black Chrysanthemum?
Yeah, I will say he's a really great character. I know he's been used in the expanded universe, the Disney expanded universe titles.
It's
Mainly
supposed to be
comics.
canon, these comics. Yeah.
Yeah, the canon comics. I don't regard them as canon. There you go. So he came from that, but he's a great design. He's a great concept. And this is not the first time, as Nem says, that we've seen a Wookiee that is really, really dark. I think what Nem's thinking is like a mix of two things. The first Knights of the Old Republic, they did talk about exiles. In fact, one of the party members from that game was what was called a Mad Claw, which is that he was basically kicked out of Wookiee society, for burying his claws in anger against his own brother, which it turns out was, manipulated by the brother to get him out. But that's basically the idea. But the real evil Wookiee that I think is the predecessor of Black Chrysanthemum is Hanhar from the second game.
There you go.
And that guy, that character is a psychotic, absolute full-on psychotic who enjoys hunting, who enjoys killing, and who feels chained by the life debts that he owes. And the more that he is put into a life debt scenario, the more it drives him mad. It was just a really, really great character idea. And I think that Chrysanthemum owes a little bit of that, but I think more so he is basically Chewie with the brakes off. And we get to see him doing things we wish Boba had done. He's the one who gets to cut loose and go after the people Boba should be going after. But, he's just sitting there, trying to be, I will rule with respect. And so he's not doing these things. And who's picking up the slack? Chrysanthemum is doing all the work. And it's nice to see Chrysanthemum doing these things. It's nice to see, a Wookiee, really, really get violent at times. And this character, it's just really, really good. But beyond that, I'm going to point out one of the things that really annoyed me about, I want to say, episode 3, which is Boba had a perfect chance to put Chrysanthemum into a life debt.
Yes.
And he didn't take it.
Yes.
I was like, you saved his life and you just send him packing? You're just like, yeah, go ahead. We're good. No, Boba Fett would say, you owe me now. You're going to go and work for me now. And you're going to do my work. So you would have had a whole episode where Chrysanthemum would have already been working for Boba and probably wouldn't have had any problems doing that. You could have had that conversation sooner. So what was the point in having him do that the episode after? You already had a perfectly good reason for him to be loyal to you. It's just, I was just like, and it makes Boba look stupid. On top of that, he knows about the Wookiee life debts, or at least he should.
Well, of course,
around the galaxy.
Well, he's been around Han and Chewie because they worked together for a long time.
Yeah, and he knows why they work together. He studied his targets. Any good bounty hunter would have studied his targets and know about that. So that was absolutely ridiculous. So, but Chrysanthemum as a character, I mean, he's just really great. And yeah, you don't want him dead. He's too interesting. He gets to be that character that we wish we had seen Chewie be at various times. And it makes perfect sense for him to be a counterpoint to Chewie. And that's another reason you don't want him to die. I mean, this is a character who could survive for hundreds of years, and you can have him at any given time within the saga, and it would make perfect sense. I would love to see what he was doing in the Clone Wars. I mean, that would be perfectly interesting. He would have been around then. So there's so many different character possibilities for Chrysanthemum that I would like to see if they ever bring him back, either in Mando or in Boba, because I just feel like there's just so much with this character that could be done, and we've only really scratched the surface. But again, bad time management, bad story choices, otherwise dragging down a really great character and a really great idea.
Also, if you are going to have a race of beings that have a range of behaviors, It reminded me of the Trolloc scene in Wheel of Time, where you thought the Trolloc was going to comfort his wounded brother, then he tore his guts out. So he either tore them out for food, or he tore them out like, you're weak, you're wounded, you're not any good to anymore, so you need to die, or just, I'm hungry and you're wounded, or whatever his motivation was. And so when you do have a feral dimension to a class of beings, then one of the funnest things to play with is the same thing they do with Logan, which is, how much of a man am I? How much of an animal am I? So how much of a civilized Wookiee am I? And how much of a feral Wookiee am I? And is that internal conflict? Am I always like when even though they made a joke out of it, Chewie eating the porgs, and then the porgs stand there and look at him and give him the cat face. I'm like, no. Anyway, Chewie would have been like, well, y'all got a problem. But
I have no sympathy for the porgs. That's like the one part of Last Jedi I actually kind of laughed at.
I will eat a burger in front of a cow. No problem.
If you're hungry enough. So I'm saying, so there's a range. That's what makes the character so interesting. There's a range of places you can go with how much of his feral nature does he give into. And then we see him that he's a Wookiee of pride, great personal pride. I mean, just so much there. And I agree 1,000%. I was screaming at the screen. I was like, wait, you let him go? Wait. What about the life debt thing? This, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're watching a chess game and everybody knows what the next move is supposed to be, and then the person does something stupid. Well, what? What'd you do that for? So I was like, Go ahead, Bracy. Thoughts about Chrysanthemum?
Okay. Couple things to bring in. Let's start with the Boba Fett thing. Yes, we all agree there was a life debt moment. That was the smart move to make. All right, you know what, Chrysanthemum, you're mine now. Go park my ship, Slave 1, because now you're Slave 2. Yes, Disney, Slave 1, not Fire Spray. Slave 1. All right, so he's got Chrysanthemum. Now he's got a debt with Fenix Shan. Now he's got Chrysanthemum in line. He's building it. He's building his tribe. He's building his organization. It's all right there. It's like it's so infuriating how close this show could get to being good, and then they just drop the ball when it's right there in the lore. It's right there in the character. And as you rightly pointed out, something I was going to point out myself, this is the opposite of Han and Chewie. As a matter of fact, even in the comics, which Chrysanthemum did come from, shows Boba Fett before the Sarlacc working together with Black Chrysanthemum. So they have an established past as well if Disney is actually going to pay attention to what it's saying is canon. So you've got that. I mean, one of the first things Disney did when introducing this character, I believe in the Darth Vader series, I'm not sure if it was in the Star Wars series, but I think it was the Darth Vader series, they introduced the anti-good guys. Dr. Aphra is kind of the Han Solo, Black Chrysanthemum. You get BT as the evil R2. You get 000 as the evil 3PO. And they're all actually pretty cool and interesting characters if you follow the comics any. So I was really geeked out to see Black Chrysanthemum in here because I knew he was a badass. I was so looking forward to this. And like you said, we didn't really get to see much out of Chewie. For some reason, Lucas never put like a stunt guy in a Wookiee suit because Peter Mayhew was really big, but he's not very physical. You could have put like a big athletic basketball player in the suit as a stunt. And, we saw, we got the inclination like, oh, they'll pull your arms out. And then first time we encounter Stormtroopers, Chewie starts cracking heads. I was expecting that sort of thing all the time. And then we didn't really get there. And then in Empire, when Han got carbon froze, Chewie's supposed to be going ape shit. And but do we see that? He gently pushes one guy into a hole. We should have seen people like that. I love seeing this out of Chrysanthemum. He starts smacking people, and people are flying dozens of feet away. He's unleashing all that Wookiee strength on them. They are just getting turned topsy-turvy, spinning around. I was expecting to see an arm come off because, hey, it's Stormtrooper armor. You don't have to show anything gross. Just hear a pop, and the arm comes flying off.
It was the ramp up. He didn't go full berserker rage, but he was on his way.
Could have gotten there. I mean, this was too big not to get there. Thankfully, at least in Solo, we did see some of that. When he goes to save his Wookiee comrades, he starts just smashing people in the dirt. He even has He even has a scene where he pulls some arms off, although it's off camera. Fine with that. We at least got to see it. And they even worked a little joke into it to kind of lighten it for the family-going audience. But Chrysanthemum gave us what we really wanted to see. We wanted to see some full-on Wookiee. And this was both great and both bad. Now, part of the deeper Star Wars lore is the Wookiees have a history with the Trandoshans, those dinosaur dragon-looking people. Bosk is one of those. And when we see this, we understand why Chrysanthemum hates these guys. But that's not explained in the show. They just, again, they take for granted that you're a fan, you're going to know this. And so when these guys are being rowdy in the casino, not bothering anybody, he's like, you know what, I really hate these guys. They hunt my people. Screw these guys. I'm going to go over in there and wreck them. You know, if it had been anybody else, maybe Jennifer Beals could have talked him out of it, but not Trandoshan. So he goes over there and he wrecks house, which I like playing into later in the series of the finale when the Trandoshans want to get some back. And do they come at him with guns? Nah, they come at him old school. Even though he's got his big old blaster cannon, they come at him with knives and swords and spears. And I was like, all right, these are the guys hunting their prey. They know he's a worthy prey. They're coming at him like Maasai after a lion. So that was kind of fun getting to see that come to play. But I just wish they'd done a little bit more with it. And even then, when you think of Boba Fett again, something they lost in the Sarlacc pit was he wore a braid of Wookiee scalps. So he also has hunted Wookiees. And, you know, when he gets that life debt on Chrysanthemum, he says, you know what? I lost my scalps to the Sarlacc. Step out of line. I'm going to start my next collection of braids with you. So there's that. There's that other I'm in charge kind of moment that you could have had. And so it was nice seeing a Wookiee cut loose. I think Chrysanthemum took too many blaster bolts. I mean, he took an awful lot of blaster bolts, like way, way too many blaster bolts. You know, he's muscular, but he is still just flesh and blood. And these blaster bolts can pierce several different types of armor if they do get a good solid hit. And then they just, I saw somebody on Twitter talking about this, some author, and they were completely right, that they just open up this giant loophole because, the plot hole, I'm sorry, because we don't really know Chrysanthemum's skill set other than he is a merc, he is a bounty hunter, he's hired muscle, but somehow he waltzes into Jabba's palace, past all the defenses, I believe the author said, like, what, did they leave the door open? And attacks Boba in his sanctum sanctorium while he's sleeping it off in his back attack. No protection, no guards, no droids, no warning, no nothing. And so that became a moment of gigantic plot convenience. And I'm sorry, man, like, I love Boba Fett, but unarmored Boba Fett just gets his arms pulled off. There's no way he survives that encounter. You know, he knuckle dusted him with his electro knuckles, and his head is still on his shoulders. So if you're going to show me this guy ripping an arm off a dinosaur man later, then Boba Fett is dead. Book of Boba Fett's over. Let's continue with Book of Fenix Shan because it's her show now. So yeah, like you can't have it both ways. You can't just plot armor the guy when he isn't even wearing his plot armor. At least put him in his plot armor, then I can believe him taking out the Wookiee, but not like this. So it's some fan service. I enjoyed it for what it was, but there's just too much going on that didn't make sense. And it's a real shame because out of some of the new characters that they've introduced in the comics, I really, really dig Chrysanthemum. He is really cool. I want to see more of him. And Steve, if they do pay attention to their own lore, we will see him again in Obi-Wan because that scar he got came from Obi-Wan's lightsaber.
Interesting.
Awesome. Before we get to Luke and Ahsoka and all different kind of stuff, I do want to get into Cad Bane. But let me tell you who I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about Pele Moto because I cannot stand her. I cannot stand Diet Ripley. I can't stand her. She ain't funny. She ain't smart. She ain't none of what she thinks she is. I can't stand it. So we ain't talking about her. So anyway, let's take a dip over into Cad Bane before we get to Luke and Ahsoka and Grogu. The one thing I will say about the Cad Bane appearance and the rivalry between he and Boba or whatever, once again, Once again, if you want a perfect example of how to build up to a final battle, you want to watch Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce.
Yes.
So I know the dynamic isn't the same between the two of them, but what happens between Edmond and Fernand is it's basically the Cain and Abel jealous brother foundation, but it's played so well. And Edmond is naive and he doesn't see the betrayal coming. He doesn't understand that Fernand wants Mercedes, but it's really more like Lex Luthor. He just wants Mercedes because Edmond is with her, not because he's really interested in her. He's that guy where I'm so eaten up by the blessings of your life, I can't be happy unless I take everything that you have. That's what should have been happening here. And we should have seen it, like Bracy said, we should have seen Bane come in sooner, and we should have played up that rivalry, and we should have played up the tension, we should have played up the history, and it should have been a couple of almost but not quite scenes to where they fight, or they fight a little bit, or they draw and fire one time, or they have some type of sparring where you can tell both of them are holding back, which sets up for the final confrontation where it's no holds barred. That's the way that should have played out here. But if you don't watch the other series, and if you don't read the books, and if you don't know, if all you watch was Book of Boba Fett, you would have no idea who this character is and why he has some type of connection to Fett and why him showing up was the favorite of some fans. And Bracy calls that doing the work of the show. The show itself should have given you that backstory and, again, that tension. And, again, it should have been building. And the reason that's so important is because there's nothing like when you have a boss character that has history with your main protagonist. If you have an antagonist that you meet, even if they turn out to be a boss character, but they just met, then you've got a shorter amount of time to build up the tension and the conflict between them, because the best conflict is always about values, not the action. One more time. The best conflict is always about values, not the action. And it's the values that give the meat to the action. It makes you care about, because watching them fight is cool, but knowing what they're fighting for is better. But when you have someone that you haven't set up come out of nowhere, that's a fan favorite. But again, if this is all you watched, you wouldn't get what was going on. There's nothing like a final conflict where the values of the antagonist and the protagonist have been clashing for a while. If they're after the same thing, they're after it in different ways. If it's about the way you see the world and you're convinced that your view is right, that type of thing. But when I heard Lucas give his exposition track on Empire, it changed the movie for me. And it changed the movie for me for the better. Because it's the only thing that connected the prequel trilogy to me, because I was never able to accept that the Anakin I met in the prequel trilogy was actually Vader. I had a mental disconnect. I couldn't make that be the same person in my mind, because the Anakin we meet is so different. But Lucas said on his commentary track that Anakin is actually trying to do the same thing he was doing before. He's actually trying to become the Emperor himself. And he's actually trying to win Luke to his side so that he and Luke together can overthrow the Emperor, but Vader becomes the new Emperor. Because Anakin says that before he fights Obi-Wan, I brought peace, justice, and corn chips to my new empire. That kind of thing. So Lucas said he's continuing that thing. That when he got drunk with that lust for power, he fancied himself, as all Sith do, to get into a position to take the Emperor out and take his place. So then he gets maimed, and then he gets bionic. But he's like, me and my son together, 2 Skywalkers, ought to be able to take the Emperor no problem. All of a sudden, Empire looked different to me, and it looked better. So I'm saying all that to say, this is what should have played into the Cad Bane relationship. And then it makes the final confrontation just go to a whole new level. The fact we fight is one thing. Our history deepens it. What we're fighting for are values, and then all of a sudden you decide to make Boba Fett a fighter again. That's the thing that made me the most angry. Like, now all of a sudden he can fight now, right? I was like, really, y'all? Really? But anyway, so let's go to your thoughts on Cad Bane. Start with Bracing.
Man, I'll tell you, really love Cad Bane, product of the Clone Wars series. Really, really fun character, very interesting, and proof that in the right hands, Star Wars can develop new characters. I mean, we've seen it with The Mandalorian, we've seen it with Grogu, and in previous material, Pre Vizsla, Cad Bane, Ahsoka Tano, so many characters that have become very beloved.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say, I love his translation to live action. I had kind of hoped that the voice actor who had worked on him before would do the voice, because the actor portraying Cad Bane has to ADR all of his dialogue. You can't speak properly around those teeth. But doing something that a really good actor does when he's hampered to some way. This guy's got his face in this great big old prosthetic head. He's got this row of sharp teeth on him. And knowing that he can't speak properly, knowing that he's going to have to ADR, he's still doing his lines, but he's being very particular with his mouth. And I became very fascinated with the way he worked his mouth. It's sort of like watching Peter Weller as RoboCop. And I remember watching an interview, so I'm like, all you can see is my mouth. So what can I do with my mouth that's interesting? The way he'll snarl one side of his lips, kind of like Elvis-like, and the positioning of his lips to expose more or less of the teeth, the way he enunciated his lines. And then he went back and re-recorded his dialogue to really emphasize what he was doing facially, is just the mark of a really good actor. Something I haven't seen done that well, I don't think, since Heath Ledger played the Joker and played into the fact that he had these prosthetic scars, and the thought he put into, why is the Joker always licking his lips? Because he can't keep his mouth completely shut. He's always having saliva issues. His lips are always drying out. And that's not anything I've seen in an interview. That's just my inference of because I've acted, and you get in that sort of mindset, like, what would you do in that situation? And I read that in the character. I was like, man, I love it. So I love watching Cad Bane do this. The guy had a great demeanor. He had a great presence, great voice. If indeed it was the same person doing the voice as the physical motion. Okay, excellent. Glad to hear that. I love it when it's the same guy doing the same thing. So I love seeing him on screen. Man, he was everything Boba Fett should have been. He walked onto the screen and you knew stuff was about to go down. You immediately, Cad Vance, his butthole tightened up as soon as he saw this dude. He knew trouble was a-coming. Pale Rider, and there's, hell followed behind him, all that sort of thing. I just love his intro, walking out of the sunset, into town. Man, that's so old school Clint Eastwood. So it was really great to see him in the show, but he should have been there so much earlier. You want to talk about the relationship, DT? You can find it on YouTube, folks. There is a scene which was partially rendered but never completed from the Clone Wars, where Boba Fett, you see the ding in his helmet. He and Cad Bane had a shootout, and they both shot each other. As a matter of fact, when you see the show and you see Cad Bane's hat finally fly off, he's got this metal skull cap that he didn't have before. That's from Boba shooting him in the head. They both shot each other in the head, and they both came out of it. One from luck, and one because he's wearing the Beskar armor. So thinking about that relationship, even if we didn't get to see it in the Clone Wars, and they really should have put it in the last season that they did when they came back to it, you could have some flashbacks to that. You could start building towards that. Cad Bane could have been this warning, this shadowy figure that just kept coming forward and forward, a little bit like we saw in the Wheel of Time, how forgot what the merchant's name is, who kept making these slight appearances leading up to his final appearance in the climax of the show. We should have had something like this, because I feel like their relationship should have been like in Kill Bill, between Bill and the bride. Here's this character who mentored this other person into being, one of the greatest bounty hunter killers of all time. And now they've had this moment where they've come at odds, and now, guess what? You didn't actually kill me, and I see you're still alive. And we've got this going on. and maybe they left each other a long time because it was never really personal with them, because it was always all about the contract or the moment or the business at hand. But once he's hired by the Pikes, you get that as like, well, this is very opportunist. I'm getting paid, and I get to sell an old score. Boba throws that right back in his face. It's we got mods in town. I wonder how much it's going to take to repair you this time. Like a little bit of that kind of thing. But you could have also had the same sort of tension that you have in Kill Bill with the final fight, a fight that used to bother me a little bit because it was so brief. And then I realized that the fight between Bill and the bride was a gunslinger shootout. This sort of thing happens very fast in the Westerns. We've already seen all the kung fu we need to see. So watching these two fight was a lot of fun. And there was a part of it that I saw somebody else talk about online that was interesting, and I had to agree in a way. And this was what we were talking about with some of the stuff with Boba Fett that almost worked, because I liked everything Cad Bane did. I like him talking down to Boba. I like him explaining his reasons. I even like him talking about, this is my final lesson to you. Like, I'm the old man who's schooling you, but I'm still faster than you, even though I'm the old guy. And when they go against each other, bounty hunter to bounty hunter, Boba Fett loses despite his armor. Cad just is faster. He's agile. And when Boba loses all that, what does he rely on? Something that paid off from the earlier episodes. The Tuscan equipment. The gaffy stick that he made with his own hands. He defeats him with that weapon because of the skills that he learned by being a member of the tribe. And that's a great payoff. But it should have been done so much better. And it was so appropriate to see Bane, just go down. Even when he's defeated, he still goes down fighting. And best of all, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like Boba Fett, he's got like a little heart monitor on his chest armor. And even when Boba stabs him, the heart monitor's still going. So I'm pretty sure we'll see Cad Bane again in the future. But yeah, my hat is completely off to that actor who portrayed him. He did something different than the animated series, and yet I feel like it's just as good or better, because whereas Cad Bane in the animated series, because it's a cartoon, they can get really extreme with things. He was cool, he was exciting, he was dangerous, he was fun. This guy just reeked of menace. He's that dude who walks in the saloon and then like everybody, like the piano player stops, everybody stops, all the noise. You're like, oh, like I said, he was more Boba Fett than Boba Fett.
More Boba than Boba, which unfortunately was not hard to do in this show. Go ahead, Nims. Thoughts on Cad?
Yeah, Jeff hit a lot of what I was going to say. I do want to add, it's not exactly clear from the last time we actually see Boba on screen when he's a child, which is holding the helmet of Jango Fett, to when he appears again, exactly what happened, in expanded stuff, exactly what happened to him, how he got off that planet. But it's implied that he fell in with bounty hunters. And we know from expanded material that eventually he ended up at Jabba's palace as a younger man and was there at the same time as Cad Bane, who was also a bounty hunter in the employ of Jabba. And that's how he was introduced to the Empire. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that even though these two eventually became rivals because of their professional reputations, that he did learn from being on missions with Cad Bane and being there and everything else. And there's this thing going on. And so I think Jeff's point is really well taken there. And you had this to build on. You could have shown them in Jabba's palace at one point, a young Boba Fett at the beginning.
Can I add something, Nim?
Yeah.
Part of the lore there is that Cad Bane actually learned from Jango Fett.
Right.
This is why when you look at his armor, he's got all this stuff so he can take on Jedi. He's one of the few bounty hunters who will, because just like the Mandalorians fought Jedi, and so you see he uses a lot of the same things, the flamethrowers, he uses boot jets, he uses a lot of different things to take on Jedi. So he learned from Jango, and then he teaches Boba. So there's such a great lineage there that could have been played on.
Yeah,
and also rivalry. It was a professional rivalry. He didn't like Jango at all.
And then eventually they came to blows in the business. So we got all this going on. We could have had those flashbacks to their story as this other story was going on. And then I loved your idea on how to end it. I was thinking the way to end it would be eventually there'd be like a sit down or there'd be a confrontation before this final fight where Boba tries to buy him out, tries to buy Cad Bane out, and Cad's like, "Come on, kid, you know I can't do that. It's not personal.
I like that.
It's
I like
only,
that.
It's only business.
When I take a job, I always see it through.
Yeah,
just
it's
like
yep.
Angel Eyes.
And you just have him say it's like it's not personal. It's only business. You know." And that it just sums it up. It sums up Din Djarin. It sums up Boba Fett. It sums up Cad Bane. It sums up bounty hunters in the Star
It's
Wars.
that code they have.
Yeah, if
You
they
do the
live
job.
Yeah, if you live and die by one thing, it's that it's only business. You know, it's like
The old rules.
Yep. So, other than that, I think you covered everything really well. But you know, I just wanted to make sure that everyone got that little bit, and then Steve and Jeff hit on it too. Is that there's this huge family arc. I mean, talk about story to lean on. You know, just it's there for you. So, once again, it goes back to you got to understand what you're working with, and you've got some great stuff to work with. So,
all right. I lost you guys. Can you guys still see me and hear me?
I
yes.
can hear you.
I see you, but your lips aren't moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
seems like for some reason you're drifting out.
Okay. There was some kind of freeze. Am I back? Can you see me now?
No,
Yeah, you're lagging.
You're lagging.
you're lagging pretty bad, except for voice.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. Steve, you didn't talk about Cad Bane yet. So
Yeah,
let's hear-
I still have some things that I want to add. Yeah, everything about this is really the story of this show is that you have really great material used less than optimally. And once again, it's bad time management. You could have had Cad Bane be the villain from episode 1, and it would have worked. I mean, and some of the things, it's like, why didn't you have Cad Bane be the one to kill the Tuscans? You know, he would have had
Yes.
every reason in the world to do
Yes.
it. And I'm kind of with Bracey. I like the idea of the Kill Bill thing because so much of this is based on the fact that Boba is turning over a new leaf, and Cad doesn't like this. It's like you're dishonoring my profession, you know, by trying to be nice to people. It's like I'm going to have to come back and school you. So what does he do? I'm going to take away everything that you care about until you realize that you belong in this business, and that if you're going to be in this business, you're going to be in it to kill and play it by my rules. If it had been, you know, Cad Bane going for episode to episode, you know, trying to pull a Sabretooth to Wolverine, you know, and just like gradually, like, yeah, I'm going to kill Garson Whip. I'm going to kill all these people. I'm going to kill all these people that you've sworn to protect until, you know, you realize that, you know, I was right all along, and you come and join me, you know, and go back to the old ways. You know, that's why he's not killing them, you know. But a lot of this also is bad time management in the sense that we don't see, you know, what Cad's past with Bane with Boba is. You know, we don't see the deleted scene could have been recreated as in live action, and it would have worked great. You know, you have this amazing scene where, you know, they pretty much take cues from Sergio Leone, you know, as he shoots the deputy and he shoots Cobb, you know, and that was just really, really good. But you could also have shown, you know, if he had been spread throughout the season, you could have seen, you know, Cad's past with Boba. You know, you could have seen flashbacks of that. You know, all of these things that would have shown why Cad has a mad on for Boba. You know, why Boba has this, you know, hates Cad now. All of these things that, you know, you can't assume that all of your audiences have seen the Clone Wars and all these other things. They don't make that mistake with Mando usually, but they made it here. I don't know why that's the case. It's just everything is wasted. But nobody cared about the Pikes as villains, and here you have them for, you know, most of the season. Nobody cares about them, but we care about Cad because he has a personal investment, because he's a menace. I mean, we have seen him established as a true threat. The moment he shows up, he's scary. The moment he shows up, he kills the deputy. You know, he shot the sheriff and he shot the deputy. But, you know, so you get that wonderful scene, you know, which is very much in the tradition of Good, Bad, the Ugly. I mean, if anybody is the Angel Eyes of the Lee Van Cleef character, it's Cad Bane.
Yep.
You know, and that's established pretty well. But what is done with it? Not enough. And that's what really gets me about this show. There's so many good things, and it doesn't work.
The Huts off planet could have hired Cad Bane, and he
Yeah.
takes it just because well, the money's good, and he's offended by what Boba's doing. So
exactly,
and I agree, and I will also agree with Jeff on this other one thing, which is how Boba ultimately defeats him. I think that makes total sense. You know, because he cannot beat Cad Bane playing his game, and that's what Cad is always trying to do. He's trying to make Boba play Cad's game the whole time. And what does Boba do at the end to beat him? Realize, okay, I can't fight like Cad does. Cad is better than me at being a bounty hunter. So I'm going to fight like a Tuscan, which is the one thing that he's not prepared for. And that absolutely works. I have no problems with that. The Boba Cad thing is one of the best things concerning Boba in the entire show. But ultimately, we only get one real episode of it, and that one scene of Cad showing up and shooting the sheriff. But it's just so much of this. It could have been really well done had they managed their time better, had they realized who their real villain was. You know, had he been a regular presence, you know, had he been a regular threat throughout the previous episodes. But unfortunately, he's not. He's tacked on towards the end. He comes in too late to save the show, and it's unfortunate.
Well, what also watching that fight, it felt to me more like the weight of age was catching up with Boba, or maybe
And Cad as well.
Yeah, but it didn't. I don't know. Something about it just felt funny. Okay, I'm gonna tell you who else we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about the Power Ranger bikers because I can't stand them. Everything
Good.
is stupid.
Or the Major Domo. I hated him more than I hated Pelimoto.
We could.
Why didn't the Pikes shoot him?
Yeah.
I actually thought they were setting him up to get shot at the last episode.
I thought he was
go and read out my terms. I was expecting him to be shot right there while Boba and Mando were going to go do something.
I thought it was Fenix's plan to use him as a sacrificial pawn.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Set up everything
That's
else.
exactly
That would have
what
made the most
should
sense. I'm
I
like,
mean, we can blow up Jennifer Beals, but we can't kill that guy.
No.
The only thing I want to say about Pelimoto, get that woman a hairstylist, please. Get her a different hairdo. That's all I want to say.
Diane Ripley, I don't want to see no more of her ever. So, but the Power Rangers that, they highlighted the girl, if you notice, that the males are more competent. The idea of voluntarily taking cyborg parts for what? As a fad, as a whim, to make you a better biker gang member, to make you a better thief, to make you do or whatever. And then, everybody's talking about the spin in the final fight that the dude had. I didn't care about that because I didn't care about them. Nothing about them. Like, I don't care if you live or die. I don't care how you fight. I don't know why and the prosthetics look cheap. That also got on my nerves. Prosthetics, you know what I'm talking about, Jeff. They look really
yes, they
cheap.
did.
I was like, there's no thought put into this. And
there's some surprisingly inconsistent FX in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at Boba Fett,
like a sore thumb, don't they?
Yeah, well, if you look at Boba Fett and Mandalorian, you can see his skin is bleached from the acid. He's got scars from being in the Sarlacc. And the first episode, he starts out like that. But the longer he's in the desert, he heals up. And so by the time he's in the Bacta tank, it's like he doesn't need it. They stopped putting the makeup on him in the flashback scenes. I didn't understand that at all. And so, yeah, man, the prosthetics look cheap on the Borgs.
They were terrible on the teen volunteer Borgs. And, you're just maybe a plot device. You're not really characters, and I don't care about you. And you should have blown up the moment that we first saw you. You should have been in cyborg pieces. And
I just think nothing about them fit in the series at all. Their bikes. Yeah. And then at the very last episode, they whip out those tiny, wimpy little pistols that the bikers. I was just like,
well, did you notice? Did you notice most of them
gang in the style of like Sons of Anarchy, and they had like somebody like a Danny Trejo leading them, and they look like a hardcore biker gang. That would have been great, but instead we get these people that just.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, but like all of them got shot, but two. But in the end scene, all the biker gang is still there. So I guess you can just replace anything you get shot with some cybernetics.
But the bikes themselves look like 1950s
Vespas
cars from Steak and Shake. Every time I saw him, I thought Steak and Shake. I'm like, okay, we're back in time in a burger joint in the middle of the 20th century with those cars. I'm like, that's just some Dick Van Dyke would drive, right? Be thinking he's fancy, right? I was like, no.
We can't afford water, but we can buy these fancy bikes and bionic parts.
Like I said, I could buy them on Coruscant, but when I saw them roll up on Tatooine, I heard the Rugrats.
Yeah, they're in the wrong place.
A proper swoop gang, and they weren't.
Yeah.
And then once she fronted him off, I was done. I mean, I was already done, but when she's fronted off, talk about, well, you can go back to your castle, but as real fighters, as real something, we're going to say here, so you make a tactically stupid decision because you're trying to prove something to a mouthy teenage girl? Really? You don't deserve to lead a cabal of hardened anything if all it takes is one little snide comment from, somebody in high school and you change your whole strategy to something senseless. No, done with you. So, having said that, let's move on to Luke, Ahsoka, Mando, and Grogu. How can I say this? Luke, for me, was a mixed bag because ever since the finale, where he comes in and he just cleans house, man. He's full-blown Luke. You don't ever want to go back from that in my eyes. And here he's trying so hard to be gentle Luke. The stuff that Yoda said to him on Empire about how you're supposed to stay calm and serene and peaceful, I think was taken to the extreme here. And so I was happy to see him, and the CGI was definitely better, although that wasn't Mark Hamill's voice of you to know that they have new software now that can produce certain voices. And I'm like, where are they?
Okay, I was wondering how they managed to do his voice because he's gotten a rasp as he's gotten older.
Yeah, I'm like, we're going to see where they're going to go with that because that could be some good places or some really bad ones. And I'm betting on the really bad ones. But you can't top his final scene in Mando. You can't top that. And so I at least wanted to see that Luke again. I at least wanted to see a fight. I at least wanted to see a bunch of things. He almost looked like he was, I'm trying to find the right word because he would be lifting Grogu as they walked. And he was almost like Uncle Luke instead of Jedi Luke. He didn't feel like he had the weight and the gravitas that he should have. And then everybody was up in arms about the choice he gives Grogu, about are you going to choose Yoda's lightsaber? Or are you going to choose the gift you got from Mando, that Mando flew all the way there and didn't get to see him and blah, 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 blah. And then what ends up happening is we basically get a reset, which kind of negates the point of their arc because the whole arc was Mando trying to find Jedi so Grogu could be trained. And the tear-jerking, heartbreaking scene of them separating, the way they had bonded and the way they're like father and son, but Luke is like, he needs to be with me so he can be trained to do what he's born to do. Okay. And then this episode, or this arc said not so much, and we get a reset. So he's right back with Mando. So what was the point? Whether or not you think Luke was cold-hearted or not by offering him that kind of choice, it is kind of funnily hypocritical in the sense that the Jedi keep saying this stuff that they don't live. Because if they believed in all that no attachment stuff, there is no Luke. It's because Anakin didn't listen to that and fell in love with Padme anyway. So there's no Luke, there's no Leia if Anakin doesn't break the Jedi rule. So it's really funny to me how he's saying this kind of thing. And also, going again to the EU, there's Mara Jade. Now, if there's any character that we should have seen by now, it should be Mara. But what Mara does is she's a full circle character, and those are not easy to write. She's someone to where when Timothy Zahn introduces her, she's behind the scene as the Emperor's hand. And by the time, and she's programmed to kill Luke Skywalker and programmed to hate him. So I won't spoil the books if you haven't read them. But the point I'm trying to make is that the relationship that they forge heals both of them. It heals them, and they become new and better people specifically because they're together, and they even have a family. So to see Luke still kind of pushing this stuff when, if ever there's going to be a Mara, he's going to throw it out just like Anakin threw it out. And, so I liked seeing him, and I'm glad he was there. I don't understand how we got Yoda's lightsaber, but you guys offered a solution last time, so I guess we can accept, these things being bounced around the galaxy. I don't know if I want to know more about Yoda's species because we've seen Yoda and Yaddle and Grogu. I don't know if we need to pull back the curtain and see more. I don't know. I guess it depends on how it's done, but it's not a burning question for me. I would like to see more Wookiees, but I don't need to see more of Yoda species. But in this whole thing, it comes down to a little bit of an all for nothing for that final Mando arc. And I'm like, well, what was the point of all that if he's just going to go back with Mando? What was the point? And I like the chainmail. I like the Mando armor chainmail T-shirt. I was like, that was boss. But I was like, and Luke has tried so hard in this incarnation to become dispassionate that he's boring. At least that was my take on it. I was like, you have tried so hard to become a monk. You have tried so hard to be emotionally neutral. You have tried so hard not to lose your temper because you know what it leads to. I get it, but there's no edge to you now. So I was like, I'm yawning at the Skywalker scenes, and I'm not supposed to be yawning when Luke Skywalker is on the screen. And I was just like, I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, I'm like, that's not supposed to be the reaction I'm having. Also, they introduced the Worlds Between Worlds thing to justify Ahsoka surviving her Vader fight. And we just talked about it on Twitter. When you do time travel or universe travel or anything that's basically Nightcrawler's Banff, where you go from one dimension to the other because you step through a dimension. And if that dimension includes time and space, it unravels your story world. Because when you introduce time travel, if you don't introduce limitations, it means you have unlimited chances to undo all the wrongs. And that leads to then a butterfly effect, which means you have to write it to where something goes wrong, that kind of thing. And we've seen all that before. So having Luke and Ahsoka know each other based on her relationship with Anakin struck me as unbelievably subdued. Like she should have had more of a reaction to the son of Anakin as far as I was concerned. But it just felt, and it was so much standing around and talking. We got two of the best Jedis we've seen in years, and y'all standing around talking about feelings and, oh, don't bother him because it'll be too hard and I'll take it. And what? See, you didn't need Ahsoka for that. If that's all that was going to happen, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to use Ahsoka for that. And I'm like, so it begged more questions than it answered, and it didn't elevate any of the characters, at least in my eyes. And then it comes back to the full circle thing, it's going to be Mando and Grogu forever. So I felt like I was watching a John Hughes movie. I felt like I was watching Some Kind of Wonderful or, 16 Candles, because like we come back around and we just came back to where we started. I'm like, okay. So I don't know. It was really kind of bittersweet because I'm glad we have the tech to feature Mark Hamill as Luke would have been after Jedi. I'm glad that we had the conclusion to Mando that we did to see a fully powered Luke, the Luke we always wanted to see. But this pushed it into many territories that I didn't need to see. And the final thing I'll say before I throw it out is I'm a little tired of this all roads lead to the sequel trilogy argument people keep having on Twitter. I'm a little tired of that because everybody keeps saying this proves that we're going to get Jake Skywalker, that, Luke turns into that bitter old man that we see and he loses optimism, and that, and Grogu wasn't really his first student. It's really going to be Kylo Ren. I was like, Grogu was his first student. He just didn't finish his training, just like Luke didn't with Yoda. How can y'all watch that and get that conclusion? Grogu was absolutely, he builds the Jedi Center while Grogu was absolutely his first student. He just didn't finish. They gave him a choice. Do you want to go further? Do you want to pick up the lightsaber? Do you want to learn the ways? Do you want to take this to the next level? And obviously Grogu was like, yeah, not so much. Okay. And which leads me to the other thing I'll say. And that is that I didn't understand the extent of Grogu's training and powers now. Because I thought it was incredible. He could shut down the Rancor. I thought it was incredible. He could force and do sleep or whatever he did. I thought that was awesome-tacular. But now I'm unsure as to how powerful Grogu is, because now it seems like he's plot convenient powerful. Like whatever the plot needs him to do, now all of a sudden he can do, which is not the way to write a character. We need limits. Okay.
Yeah, but he's kind of always been that way.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. But I'm just saying it's another one of those things. Like I told you, my problem with the Dark Knight is the way the Joker set everything up. If it didn't happen exactly the way it had to happen, none of his schemes work, which means the dominoes have to fall a certain way every time. So if Grogu is not there and he's not at whatever power level he's at, then Rancor is going to destroy everything. So I just didn't like it. But yeah, so that's a lot of stuff mixed up. So I'll let you guys dissect that. Start with Bracy. Luke, Ahsoka, Grogu.
Okay, I did like seeing Luke and Ahsoka together. Again, because we have that lineage from father to son to training to mentor. There's a great connectivity there, like between Boba and Cad Bane. And this is something that could have been paralleled in a way if you wanted to do that. But really, where all of this belongs is in Mandalorian Season 3. It does not belong here in the Book of Boba Fett. All of this, and I agree with you, like, we all knew that probably Grogu would eventually get back with Mando. They are such a good team together. It's great, this father-son story. Everybody loves it. But that should have been something that took the entire season to get to.
Yes.
And I think that the idea, and because we do want to see more Luke, we want to see more Ahsoka, it would be nice to have these little parallel stories going on. And then Grogu's getting into his training, but like, Luke's doing things like, oh, you're still a little distracted. You're getting on this. And then all of a sudden the chainmail is delivered. Now, I saw a lot of people thinking like this idea was terrible, but they don't understand the source. Again, Mandalorian was pulled very much from Lone Wolf and Cub when you look at it. So we get that again here. When Ito Ogami, his house is destroyed by Yagyu, and the Shogun orders him to kill himself and his child, the only two members who have survived. Ito decides that he is going to go on this path of vengeance. He is going to destroy the Yagyu clan just as his was destroyed. And he gives his infant son, who cannot understand anything, a choice. He puts before him a ball, and he puts before him a sword. And he's like, Dagro, it is up to you. Choose one, and I will end it quickly, and you will rejoin your mother. Choose the sword, and you will come on this path of vengeance with me. And the baby crawls over to the sword. And so it's, the assassin with the baby cart, and that's how the legend starts. So seeing that choice here, it kind of warmed my heart. It still falls into this samurai tradition, which is a big part of Star Wars as well. And I like seeing that reference in there. But I have to agree with you. For me, Luke was a bit of a mixed bag. As much as I enjoyed seeing him and Ahsoka together, I wish we could have spent a little bit more time with that instead of Ahsoka talking with Mando. Discussing his father, and she's not a Jedi. She hasn't been a Jedi for a long time, but she was trained by them, raised by them. She understands them, and so in her own way, she's mentoring Luke. Even though, when you watch the two of them in their separate scenes in the series, Luke has far outstripped her in terms of power and ability. He's everything Anakin was supposed to be by the time we see him take on the Dark Troopers. Yeah, he is just a league beyond her. And she can respect that, but she can still mentor him. And so there's that aspect of things. But I didn't like Luke talking about this lack of attachments, because Luke Skywalker is loaded with attachments. He went off to save his friends, even though he knew it was potentially a suicide mission, because he couldn't let them go. Even though it was a future that he was seeing, that the future means it's the future. Is it a possible future? Is it really for sure going to happen? We don't know. You're just seeing the future. He can't take that chance. He goes on. When he finds out Vader is his dad, he will not let go of that attachment. And because he doesn't, it changes everything. And because Vader couldn't let go of his own attachments, like father, like son, he was able to make a turnaround at the end. So I don't see Luke's Jedi Academy as being one of the same vein that led to the downfall of the Jedi. The lack of attachments, the passivity, the lack of exploring all aspects of the Force. The Sith and the Jedi split off from a singular order, and then it became a violent rivalry as one side let their exploration of their passionate side or their darker emotions lead them down a very difficult path. Now, you look at somebody like Mace Windu, who learned to walk a very fine line when it came to his fighting style, which did incorporate the dark side of the Force. And we even looking at Anakin, even though he broke a lot of the tenets of the Jedi for a very long time, he walked a similar path. He could kind of handle dipping into the dark side a bit. And I think there is something to be said for that. I think Luke's way should be his own way and not the Jedi way. We don't even know how he knows this, other than I guess he found Yoda's scrolls, if we look at the sequel trilogy. But him, if you watch this episode, you can see this becoming Jake Skywalker, because trying to be like the Jedi of the past, trying to be like the Order that failed, is what's going to lead to failure. Luke should follow his own heart and his own dictate in this matter, because his instincts have always proven right. Even when they've cost him, it was the right thing to do. You cannot just be a force of passivity. You've got to be something else. Like when we were discussing on Twitter about the difference between the Jedi, are they, how's it work? Are they peacekeepers? They kill, but they try not to kill, because they are peacekeepers. I equated them to cops versus soldiers. Soldiers break things, they blow up stuff, they kill the enemy, they subdue, they suppress. Cops are there as public servants who have the ability to use lethal force for the protection of others. And so that's really what the Jedi have been. But the Jedi are also diplomats and philosophers and warrior priests on top of all of that. And Luke should be following a tradition like that, but I think far more proactive than the Jedi of old had been, because that eventually failed them in the end, as they fell into this complacency. There's the there's the jokes about, like, oh, look, Master Obi-Wan has lost the whole planet, and the librarians say, oh, if there were Sith or whatever, we'd know about it. We know everything. We're the Jedi. Luke should not be following that path, and I don't think Luke would. And so I do feel like this is all leading to sequel trilogy. So watching Luke do some things was very appealing. I love the cute little fatherly things, like picking up Grogu. These casual applications of the Force, which just made sense. Him levitating all the frogs out of the pond as a lesson. That was great. I thought it was a great teachable moment. Him not pulling any punches with Grogu, like, oh, look, this is training time. I'm going to teach you how to jump. Bam! Oh, see, you better learn how to jump. This thing's going to sting you if you don't. That's all fun, and that falls in that whole kind of kung fu movie tradition of, like, the student getting whacked on until they get it. Luke experienced that for himself. But I see both sides of this, and that probably falls into more of like what we've seen with The Mandalorian. Felt like two different stories being headed by two different sets of people. And so I see a bit of the same thing here, because it's like you said, even when we look at that final scene with Luke in Mando season 2, he does come across as comical Luke entering Jabba's palace. But that's only how Luke initially starts. When he gets amped up, like we see him expressing emotion. We see him getting into the fight. We see concern. We see maybe a little bit of anger. And there's even, a bit of a thrill and some threats. He seems to be having a little bit of fun while he's doing things too. So he chokes out people. Like, Jedi don't choke out people. That's not what Jedi do.
I was going to say, Luke uses force chokes as Anakin's signature move.
Yeah, this is Luke, and Luke should be bringing together. I think Luke's healing of the Force, as like the descendant of the Chosen One, should be bringing the Jedi and the Sith back together. But I don't think they're going to go there. So, as much as I enjoyed seeing Luke, I'm also a bit trepidatious about what I see happening. Grogu's still fun. What you said makes perfect sense, and I agree. You've just undone all of the Mandalorian. This should be the next Mando thing should be basically him trying to help the Mandalorians reclaim Mandalore. And along the way, we see Grogu getting training, being dissatisfied, and then towards the end, or maybe the last episode of Series 3, we see him being offered the choice. And then Series 4, father and son are reunited as the team. That's where I would go with things.
That's right. That's right. And who's the one, all that stuff you said about Luke's realization, who's the one that helps him realize all that? Mara. Mara Jade is the one that helps him see all the stuff you just said about himself. So her absence from all of this just really grates on my nerves. But anyway,
I know we keep getting rumors that she's going to show up, but not here yet.
Well, plus she might not be Mara by the time we see her.
Yeah,
they've proven with this show that they can just completely change the motivation and personality.
They're done with Luke, so she's never going to make an appearance. So.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Steve. Luke, Ahsoka, Grogu, and Mando.
Yeah. Before that, I'll talk a little bit about Mara, and I kind of will say that this is the series where if you were going to bring back Mara Jade, this would have been the one to do it.
This is the one.
And the reason for this is, what was Mara doing in Return of the Jedi, or around that time frame? She was working for Jabba as one of his dancers. So she probably knows Boba Fett. I would not put it, if nothing else, she knows the people in Jabba's palace. She knows that place very well. So, would it have been such a hard thing to believe that Mara might have showed up around that time? That she might have been curious to see who this new daimyo of Mos Espa is? No, we don't see her. But she would have had every reason to show up. And then along the way, maybe she could have met Luke, through Mando or whoever. It certainly would have been possible to arrange that. So you have Luke on the one hand, and then you have Jabba's palace and the bounty hunters and Boba Fett on the other side, and it could have merged together quite well. And unfortunately, this is another missed opportunity of this show, which had so many concepts that were not used properly. So add Mara Jade to that list too. As for Luke and Ahsoka and all these things, I liked it the first time I saw it, and then rewatching it, I'm just kind of realizing, wow, these people are not doing what Luke should be doing, or what he had done in the New Jedi Order stuff in the EU. Because you would think that Luke and Ahsoka Tano would be like the two people most motivated to not do things the way the Jedi Council did them.
Yes.
Yes.
Ahsoka was on the receiving end of the wisdom of the Jedi Council, because she was, she, and in fact left the Order because she didn't like the things that they were doing. Because they basically had abandoned her, in her time of need when she was innocent and they had done nothing. And she was complaining after that you're not protecting the people that you're serving. What's going on with you? And so, why would she want to do things the Jedi way after this? And why would Luke, who, all his limited experience with the Jedi has basically been, oh, we tell truth from the certain point of view, and we keep important facts from you, that maybe you might want to know. You would think that Luke, who is idealistic, who has attachments to his sister, to Han, to his friends, and who, by very nature, somebody who attaches to people, would say, yeah, maybe this way of extreme non-attachment is the problem. Maybe we should do things like allow Jedi to be married, like they did in the New Jedi Order. Maybe we wanted to do things to take that path and look into all these things to see why things don't work. And instead of that, it's basically we're just trying to be the same Jedi Order that we always were, and learning nothing. So we're getting Harley Don't Learn Nothing applied to an entire order of warrior monks. It's just absolutely amazing. There are elements that I did find interesting. I think the way that they were trying to set up the Mandalorians as a contrast to the Jedi way was very interesting. loyalty and solidarity are the way. I'm like, yeah, that is interesting. The idea that the Mandalorians value attachments. They value strength. Strength and unison in that attachment. They are a tribe. They are a covert. We stand up for each other as a community. We have these rules that we follow. By the creed. But basically, we embrace our attachments to other people. In contrast to the extreme Jedi way of doing it, which is to forego all attachment. But what really kind of gets me is I thought, honestly, the first time that I saw the episode was that Luke was actually testing Grogu, and with the idea that, oh, okay, I'm going to give you both of these things, but I need you to make this choice because you need to be clear in your commitment to whatever it is that you choose, and then you can decide to be both. But you need to know where your heart is and be able to commit to whatever it is that you're doing, and you're not committed at this moment. Had it been that, and basically say, okay, yeah, I'm going to give you the lightsaber and I'm going to give you the armor, because there's nothing saying that you can't be both. Right. And in fact, the thing that really got me into thinking that might have been the case was when they talk about Tar Vizsla, the Mandalorian who had wielded the Darksaber. He was Mandalorian and Jedi. So clearly, historically, it is possible for Grogu to follow both paths. It is possible to value attachments while not get caught up in them enough to be an effective Jedi. I mean, because we saw that with Tar Vizsla. So Luke should know this. Why would he make it an either-or proposition? I thought only Sith dealt with absolutes. I had thought, okay, there's something more to this than we're seeing, because it didn't make sense for Luke to have that viewpoint, especially since, he's somebody who was not really raised by the Jedi in the Jedi traditions. He was somebody who was raised like a normal farm boy and then became a Jedi by training, after he had grown older. I'm just looking at this and I'm saying it doesn't make any sense for him, to have this attitude and for him to just suddenly go full Jedi, especially knowing and learning from Ahsoka, I would imagine, where the Jedi made their mistakes. I mean, if I were Luke, I would definitely be listening to Ahsoka, because Ahsoka knows where the Jedi have gone wrong. So if you're going to build a new Jedi Council or a new Jedi Order, Ahsoka's the person you want to listen to, because she knows everything that worked for the Jedi and everything that doesn't work for the Jedi. And you would think that both of these two working together to form a new council, which, I could see them doing that. But they why are they going bound and determined to repeat the same mistakes? I'm hoping it's not that they're trying to set up the sequel trilogy. I'm going to ignore it if they are, honestly, because I don't acknowledge the sequel trilogies having happened. I never will acknowledge those movies. You can never make me acknowledge those movies. I just forget that they ever happened. And Lucasfilm says I can forget it, so I'm going to. But in any case, it just seems like, there does seem to be like a difference of opinion at Lucasfilm. It seems like they're trying to, maybe they were under some restrictions where they had to, make those hints to Last Jedi, but I don't know, and I don't really want to speculate too much into that. But regardless, it's like there are interesting things about it. I can appreciate, finally seeing Luke and Ahsoka actually have a scene together, because that had so much possibility. I would like to see where they first met, because clearly this was not their first meeting. They don't act like they had just met a few minutes ago.
Right.
So clearly there's something else there, and I would like to see, even if it's just an animation in some way, how that happened. Because I feel like there's a story there that we just didn't see. And once again, so much about Book of Boba Fett is the cool stories we didn't see because they didn't show them to us like they should have, because, again, time management problems. A lot of potential, a lot of really good stuff. I thought that the flashbacks, the kind of member berries to Empire were really nice. Luke learning from the way that, from his own mistakes as an apprentice, and trying to teach those things to Grogu. Don't try too hard like I did, being the understated thing. So all those kinds of moments. Yeah, why don't I run with you and kind of show you, how it is that you jump. All of these little things. It's nice to see those master apprentice moments with Luke and Grogu. It's nice to see the brief interactions that Luke had with Ahsoka. I just wanted more of them, and I wanted them to have more quality and more meaning. There's just enough of that. There's just so much here. There's so much here. As always with the show, there's so much here, and yet the execution and whatever's going on behind the scenes, and whatever's happening with the different cook in the broth, it's just not coming together the way it should, even though the tools are all there.
Well, again, Nims nailed it earlier in the pod. You have to understand the characters that you're writing. And on top of all that, what you hit on, Steve, has actually been the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem is nobody seems to know who Luke Skywalker is except Mark Hamill. So every time we see him, he's what I call a tangent Luke. He's like Jamie Madrox. He's multiplied into different, characters. And maybe this is one aspect of maybe who Luke could be given this, and this. But nobody seems to get who Luke is except Mark. And I'm like, y'all listening to everybody but Mark Hamill, the dude that is Luke and is inhabited.
And George Lucas, of course.
Well, right, Lucas. But on top of all that, you also don't understand, just like they did in Matrix Resurrections, you don't understand Messiah arcs. You don't understand heroes coming into their own arcs. You don't understand once the hero has fought whatever boss battle he needs to fight to get to the level we always wanted to see. You don't go backwards from that. If anything, you make him like the Wizard Sam, and he chooses new champions, but you don't make him less than what he was because we waited his whole arc to see him get there. They don't get that either. But anyway, go ahead, Nams. Luke, Grogu, Ahsoka.
Okay. Well, this is going to be interesting because I pretty much disagree with all you guys. So
bring it.
First, before I get to that point, let me get to the least interesting point for me in this whole exercise, which is Grogu. Him getting back with the Mandalorian, I think, is just a monumental mistake for all of them. It's this choice they've made, but I don't think it's going to fit because the first two arcs were this journey of getting somebody who is defenseless and needs to get protected back to his home or where he belongs. Having him now in a series where presumably Din Djarin is going to be doing his job, you can't have him now as the anchor around Din Djarin's neck all the time. So you're going to have to find a way to animate him to make him able to hold his own, and that's going to mean CGI and a whole other thing. It's just a mess, So good luck to them. And like I said, I think he is the least interesting part of all of this. So this gets then into what I kind of disagree with you guys on. And first of all, I'll say I'm presuming that, okay, I got to go with where, Jake Skywalker, where we ended up. But even if we don't, this is my opinion. I have always felt that Luke, even though I read the expanded universe and everything, that Luke is a flawed Jedi. He is a powerful Force user, a powerful Jedi warrior, but he was never able to be a Jedi master because he never completed his training. And you look at the lineage of his teachers. All of them are failed teachers to one degree or another. Qui-Gon did not teach Obi-Wan well. He taught him to be a great Jedi warrior, but was Obi-Wan a good teacher for Luke? Really? I mean, he sort of was, but he kept things from him and everything. So I think that lineage of teaching, just like lineage in martial arts, is flawed. And then you have Luke learning from Yoda, but Luke learns some things from Yoda and then stops his training. And one of the things he learns is he goes to the tree. Yoda sends him to the tree where he fights Vader and he sees himself. That is an incredibly powerful moment that's going to stick with Luke for the rest of his life. So this is where, and now here's where I will admittedly say I'm doing a lot of work for the show. A lot of work, a la Jeff. The Ahsoka thing makes perfect sense to me. And she even says a line, she says, "You're so like your father." But they left stuff out. And this should have been 2 or 3 episodes of, material here. What she should have said is, "You're so like your father. But remember, your father became Vader because of hidden attachments." And suddenly that gets in Luke's mind. Luke is like, oh. Then you have Luke, eventually, he would meditate on this, and he sees the 2 paths that Grogu could follow. and what hidden attachments could mean for Grogu. You could have another Dark Lord of the Sith, or worse, someone who has got the Sith rage over being denied this because he finds out Mando died, and you could go any number of ways with it. And he descends into that without any Sith control. He's just pure rage, this guy. So you do all this and you do all that, and you bring this to his conclusion. And this is why Luke gives him that choice, because he wants to see, is he capable right now of divorcing himself from the detachment, because it's too dangerous to do that. And you go forward with that. Then here's where we get into the sequels, okay? And kind of like the Jake Skywalker and the eventual rise of the guy, I can't even remember his name anymore because I put the sequels out of my mind as well. But, Ben Kenobi's.
Kylo Ren.
Yeah. Kylo Ren and all that stuff.
Ray Palpatine.
Luke desperately wants to be a Jedi because he says it in Return of the Jedi. I'm a Jedi like my father. He's trying to do it to hold on to heritage and everything, but he doesn't believe in the real Jedi way. He doesn't believe in all of these things. So he's trying a hybrid way. He's trying to teach them this hybrid version where he's making it up as he goes along. He never finished his training, and all of these other things. And ultimately, he fails his students. And I could see that. I could see Luke, powerful Luke, the most powerful Force user in the galaxy, failing as a teacher and then being bitter because of it. I understand that arc. It's a dark arc. It's not a one we wanted to see for our hero, but I understand that. Now granted, I'm doing a lot of work and there's a lot of things that I would fill in. Like I even made notes. I was like, let's see what else I got here. I mean, Ahsoka should be the one that points out attachments. God, what did I write? I can't even write what I read.
I'll just say, like, while you're looking for that, Nem, one thing that I think needs to be brought up is what Joe Lee Bindo said in Knights of the Old Republic, which is the idea the problem is not attachments per se, it's controlling your passions within that attachment.
Right.
And that's what's not being taught.
Yeah, and I think that Luke, seeing that, you could even play on that with Grogu. And once again, I'm doing the work for the show and for their series. Losing his student because Grogu chooses the attachment says, I have lost a powerful Force user that could have been my first student who graduated. And so he tries to come up with this way where you can try and tame your passions, tame your attachments, and still hold on to that type of control and use of the Force that the Jedi has, even though you've already pointed out he's flawed. He uses all sorts of different Force powers as far as the Jedi are concerned. But with any person, you guys are teachers. When you're making it up as you go and you're the first person to break ground, you're going to make mistakes. And when you make mistakes with people this powerful like Kylo Ren, and who knows what set Kylo Ren off? We don't know. Luke is powerful, but Luke can see these images and stuff, and maybe he interprets one wrong, and that sets Kylo Ren on a path that Luke can never bring him back from, which in turn leads to the destruction of the Jedi Temple. So I understand that story. I kind of like it in a certain sense, but it's like an Elseworlds version of Luke. You could have Luke going so many different directions. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It still feels like an alternate version if certain things happen, because I understand what you're saying, and I think your point is well made. The problem I have with that is that it is not consistently applied. So if we're going to go that way with Luke, then everything about him post-Jedi should have that. And if we're going to go another way, then, like you said, we're not going to see Mara anywhere or whatever. But it's like, how can I say this? If we're going to have Luke haunted by the specter of his father, then that needs to be his thing.
Yeah.
Because that's a powerful way to write the character. And then if you read any of the EU stuff and you get into the clones and you get into the kind of mind stuff the Emperor was doing.
Yeah.
And, so there's so many different places you can go. But
see, and I always thought that was the most powerful lesson that Yoda gave him, which was, and that, to me, every time I've watched Empire, the most powerful thing that comes out of that for Luke's life is the fact that, but for a mistake here or there, or a right choice here or there, you become Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about something that would stick with me for the rest of my life, because I want to grow up not to be this person. I want to mature not to be this person. I mean, there's fear in that. I mean, talk about the dark side. There is fear in that. Fear that you will become like your father.
Fear is the path to the dark side.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, actually, here's something interesting. One of the proposed endings to Return of the Jedi was Luke actually cutting down Vader, taking his mask, putting it on, stepping up to the Emperor and telling him, I am Vader now. And he goes down to Endor and slaughters the rebels at the shield generator.
Wow.
yeah.
So he did consider going there.
And you know, that is definitely always in the realm of possibility. But like I said, for me, we've seen so many different versions of Luke Skywalker by now until I'm not buying any of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Except the one that crushed the Dark Troopers. I'm buying that one because that's the one we always want to see. That's one we paid to see that we didn't really get to see in Return of the Jedi. And I just saw a tweet today talking about how somebody wants a cut of Return of the Jedi with all the deleted scenes. I'm like, if we can add him completing his lightsaber, I'll take it, because we needed to see that.
I did want to, you know, there was one point I made. I was really curious to hear what you guys thought of, because it might have been a very contentious point, which is that I think that Luke's training is flawed because his lineage of teachers is flawed. I was kind of curious what you thought about that.
I have some thoughts on that. I think the point you made about Qui-Gon is valid and not. I think Obi-Wan was very much in the trappings of the regular Jedi Temple, but Qui-Gon was a rogue, which is why he never attained rank of master. He fully gave himself to the Force. And had Qui-Gon lived, I think the story of Anakin would have turned out much more differently. I think he understood exactly how to handle Anakin, and Anakin would have grown up to be that incredible hero that they're all expecting. So I think Qui-Gon already saw the flaws in the Jedi. So I don't fault him as a teacher, except for the fact that he couldn't impart that idea to Obi-Wan. So there is that, but at the same time, you know, he was doing the best he could, and everybody else was going with the game plan. So odds were that Obi-Wan was going to fall in line like that. The thing about Luke as a teacher is, even Yoda said, like, you know, once you defeat Vader, you'll be a Jedi Knight. Jedi Knight. Mm-hmm. His training is not complete. He is not a Jedi Master. He has elevated himself to a status similar, but he's never had a Padawan. He doesn't know how to teach. He can only go by what he's seen as far as the meager amount of teaching he got from Ben and the very rushed teaching he got from Yoda. So in some ways, I can see him failing as a teacher because he doesn't know how. And I felt like they did try and put some of that in this episode, that he was struggling to be a teacher.
And I
do also agree that there is a flawed lineage there as well, because, like, look, Yoda's student, Dooku, he left.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's failed his student. There's a lot of failure going on.
I can even see Ahsoka understanding that, because her teacher was Anakin, you know, and so she's looking at what's going on. So, and
yet, what did she say of Anakin in her episode of Mandalorian? I've seen what it can do to the best of us, even with being his student and seeing him up close like few people do. She still considered him the best of them.
Okay, my thoughts. First of all, there are a lot of rogue Jedi, and then we eventually get into gray Jedi, which leads me to the main point, and here it is. There's someone that I know personally, and their greatest flaw is that they can't see their own flaws. So I don't know if I would state it like you stated it, that his teaching lineage was flawed because the whole Jedi philosophy is flawed. Okay. One of the reasons they got defeated, the quickest way to lose is to do like Mike Tyson and say, no one can beat me. That's the quickest way to lose. Like Rocky and Rocky 3. You got somebody coming up and he's hungry. He's hungry like you used to be. But now you're comfortable. Now you got civilized. Now you're on the Muppet Show, now you're not that guy anymore. And so the Jedi always struck me like that. They always thought because we quote unquote have right on our side or whatever kind of insert morality clause that you want to use, they always thought this can't happen to us. And if you notice, when somebody left, like Dooku, or somebody turned to the dark side, they turned hard. They turned hard. They're like, forget all that life.
They're all in.
Right. I mean, because you don't kind of halfway go to the dark side. But the point I'm trying to make is what became clear to me in Revenge of the Sith was not only the fact that they couldn't see their own flaws, but what they didn't seem to see, because when, oh Lord, when you don't get basic stuff, see, I try so hard to master the basics. I'm not perfect, and I have glaring flaws of my own. But my desire is to master the basics, because whenever you get in trouble, you go back to your foundation. Whenever you get in over your head, you go back to like a basic karate stance, just anything, go back to your basics, right? What amazed me about Yoda in particular is he didn't understand that what he was selling was a life without benefit. No attachments, suppress all your negative emotions. If you have premonition, prophetic dreams that something bad is supposed to happen, just put it out your mind. Don't worry about it. Even if it happened to you in the past, we're not proactive, we're reactive. And we can't marry and have kids, even though all of us obviously had a mama, or else why would we be here? So I'm like, you're selling a lifestyle that's not even on the level of a monk or a monastery. You're selling a lifestyle where basically you exist kind of as a function. And
remember, this is done without choice. They find babes who have the Force, and take them in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. And again, so it's cool and all, but it's cool if you get some kind of benefit. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking at Luke, up there and forming this thing, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And once again, that's why I keep referring to Mara, because she rounded his life out. She opened his heart back up again. She taught him you can't be a Jedi and love. And just as a side note, we were all hoping that Rey was Obi-Wan's child. But anyway, that's another conversation. So the point I'm trying to make is that I've been struggling to find the benefit. I know that light and dark are extremes, which is why I understand Gray Jedi better. But the reason the Emperor was able to turn Anakin, because he basically told him, you can't get what you want on the path you're on.
See, in my opinion, the Jedi should have been responsible for training Force sensitives, period. And then at a certain point, being a Jedi was an option. They would have been the warrior monk option you could choose. And then your training would have been continued that way, or you would choose a different path.
Yeah, it becomes Xavier schools, like, oh, you have access to this power. Let me teach you how to use it without accidentally hurting somebody. And then, hey, would you like to step over here into the X-Men?
Yeah.
Jedi Hogwarts.
Yeah, you cannot set up a life without love and think people are going to stick to that. That's what I mean. That's basic.
And there are some that will choose that, but when you're choosing it for somebody,
sure thing. I mean, because we've got Shaolin monks, we've had Gregorian monks. There are people who will choose that aesthetic lifestyle, but you have to give them the choice.
You have to give them the choice. You can't set it
up
where you can't have this, you can't have that. You can't do that.
Yeah, even the Amish who raise up their children in this lifestyle, give them the choice. They give them a couple of years to go experience the world, and 75% of them come back to it.
And that's why
that's right.
That's why I thought Luke's decision was justified. I just think it was hasty and ill-explained, because Luke
was rushed.
Would have had to gain the wisdom either through premonition or something to see that the Jedi are wrong. I have got to give the child a choice, otherwise I could create a monster. Yeah,
so. but all of the so-called great Jedi that we have seen don't seem to be able to see 5 minutes off their nose. Can't see
by being able to see the future.
Yeah, but I think
despite being able to see the future.
Right.
Well, the dark side clouds it.
I think that's where Ahsoka helps Luke, though. I mean, and that's what I was saying.
I love your idea of showing, like, and I especially like your idea of, like, because of Anakin's hidden attachments. That was the key word. Like, so Grogu's trying to be a Jedi because he thinks it's the thing to be, but he still has this longing for Din Djarin, and Ahsoka sees that will lead to disaster. I love that idea so much.
I don't fault Anakin for anything having to do with Shmi or Padme because that's human. Anakin's problem is, and they didn't explain it well, which is why you have to watch the movie several times.
Yeah.
It's what Obi-Wan says before they fight. Your lust for power has done that. See, you trying to make him sympathetic and trying to make him power hungry at the same time wasn't pulled off well. So if you're going to focus on him saying, I want more power, that kind of thing, like when Hal Jordan killed all his Green Lanterns and absorbed their rings because he's going on his murderer spree to avenge Coast City because he needs more power, like Doctor Strange trying to bring Christine back. So he does all those wicked things because he needs more power. If that was the story, that was one thing. But they mixed in with it a young boy that was hurt by the loss of his mother and had vengeance in his heart like anybody would have, and a young man that fell in love and started a family. I don't fault him for any of that. How can you fault somebody for that? So Yoda trying to tell him, well, you can't have that. You ain't supposed to do that. And everybody's not going to listen to that. That's all I'm saying.
I think Anakin's major failure, in my opinion, is that he always has a little boy inside screaming, that's not fair.
Yeah.
So,
which is relatable, because sometimes we have to kill that little boy voice to become grown men and deal with our responsibilities. If that voice is there, we have to kill it because ain't no fairness in life.
Yeah. And that's what Obi-Wan really struggles with through those movies. You could see him frustrated because he cannot get Anakin to see past his own frustrations.
Desires.
Well, when you've been told you're the chosen one since you were a child, you're pretty much have this idea that, you're entitled to have everything the way you want it. And that's the problem.
Don't y'all Jedi have therapy? Ain't there a psychiatrist on Coruscant or something?
See, there should have been another path. It's like, I don't want to be a Jedi Knight. I'll be a Jedi therapist. I'll go down that path.
Why can't you go to the Jedi shrink and work through your emotions? If this whole thing is turning between light side and dark side is based on your emotions, then you would think they would have an entire profession dedicated to when you come into your negative emotions, which anybody would do, you could work through them without having to, I don't know, dismember people, behead people, kill children. I'm just throwing it out there.
Before Jedi Internal Affairs has to get involved. So.
Jedi Internal Affairs, right. Who Jedi is the Jedi? If anything else you guys want to throw out before we wrap up? Anything else?
This has been a marathon all over the world of Star Wars session, but a good one. So,
all right. Well, then we're going to call it there. We are really consistent because all four of us, no matter what our perspective, we all have an eye for potential. It may be coming from different angles, but as writers and as fans, the potential always seems to be screaming. And many times we don't understand why that is not capitalized. Now, in all fairness, I do believe in walk a mile in somebody's shoes, and I do believe you need to have certain experiences. And I do believe if you've never been put in certain positions, maybe you don't understand all of the pressures and the vectors that go along in that position. So in all fairness, I do need to say that. But still, when you have a production team, and that includes, writers, directors, producers, lighters, costume, hair, makeup, sound effects, because Star Wars was built on sound design. Star Wars wouldn't be what it was without the way R2 sounds, or Chewie, or the way a lightsaber sounds when it powers up. So when you have that level of detail, then it seems to me that everybody that comes into the world will understand that's where the bar is. So we're going to have to start with a high bar and see if we can go higher. But again, that's just me. So all four of us, no matter what our perspective, it hurts like a gut punch when we see unrealized potential, when we see so many good places the story could have gone. And for some reason, there's a consistent effort to choose the worst paths or the paths that make the least amount of sense. I don't understand that. So we're trying to get over that, but
quicker, easier it is.
Okay, lazy writing. Maybe that's what it is. Welcome to Lazy Writer. But anyway, so I want to thank my co-host. Awesome as always. Thank you so much, Nims.
No problem. And I'll just say out there for writers, know your source material, know your source material, know your source material. You can't write about Arthur unless you know that he's a bastard born of betrayal. You just can't. So,
boom. Thank you so much, Bracy.
Always a pleasure. And remember, guys, let's have the force be with us and not the farce.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, and all this is about potential and the lack of it. And there was just so much there that you could have had a great series. And I'm still looking forward to Mando series season 3. I think that there's enough there that, we want to see, him retake Mandalore, return to Mandalore, and redeem himself in the eyes of the Watch. And there's just so much there that we could see. I just hope that they learn their lessons from this season, and that we don't see anything like that ever happen ever again. And until then, this is the way.
Yep.
This is the way. Well, always remember, you can't just put lightsabers in it and think people are going to watch. And on that note, I want you to check out the other podcasts and YouTube channels we have for Comic Crusaders and United Capes Podcast Network. We have literally something for everybody. If you're into retro stuff, we cover the more contemporary stuff. Lots of interviews, lots of up-and-coming artists. So definitely check out our entire network because we have a very wide offering. All right. And me and this crew will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
Spoilers.